Good news, everyone! Talking Futurama is coming back for Talking Futurama Season 2, Part 2.
Fresher than a summer ham, this podcast comes every Friday. And if you sign up at the $5 level at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, you can hear each episode as it goes live.
That's right. Sign up today at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons for $5 to hear Talking Futurama every Friday throughout the rest of 2020 and also all the previous episodes we've done so far.
So head over to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons now, or we're going to clamp you.
Shut up and take my money.
Cartoons from present in the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where you could never have too much grenadine. I am one of your hosts, the master of heart-to-heart style repartee, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and I'm hunting down that bespoke clean suit appearance.
And who is our special guest on the line?
I'm Dave Whittington, and if he punches me, I might poop myself a little. I can feel some poop coming.
And today's episode is the Venture Brothers episode, What Color is Your Clean Suit?
Looks like we ain't done yet.
And yes, our old buddy and top-tier patron, Dave Whittington, is back with another selection. And Dave, I think Venture Brothers was like one of your original picks.
Yeah, it was one of the first ones. Well, it was the first one, but I think for some reason Samurai Jack came out first.
And we could record...
But yeah, those were my first two.
When we could record in person.
Yes.
Back in the old times.
The good old days, yeah.
Now, 3 years later, you're picking another one. The first one was Escape from the House of Mummies, and now you pick the season 5 premiere. So, yeah, Dave, why return to the Venture Brothers? I think I know, but
yeah, it's absolutely because as of this recording, in light of its recent cancellation, about a month and a half ago, cancellation news. And the thing was, I had some trouble picking, what episode best embodies the Venture Brothers. And the truth of that is, it's probably an episode that'd be absolutely impenetrable to someone who hasn't seen the show before. That isn't this episode. This episode is more just a really good episode from a later season. It's kind of how I would describe it. And I guess viewers wouldn't know this, but you guys know this. I write about all the time. Is I almost always try to pick stuff that has not been picked before, like shows you guys haven't done before. So yeah, this is the obvious exception because it's probably one of my favorite shows of all time, and yeah, it was canceled recently.
Yeah, the silver lining of the recent cancellation of Venture Brothers is that it got me to return to the series in a way I haven't in many years. When season 7 aired, I watched it, but after each episode was over, I was like, all right, I'm good. I don't need to rewatch it again. I'll just watch it the next time it comes back on as I prepare for season 8, which will definitely come. And so once the news came out in September about the cancellation, I was like, I got to watch Venture Brothers again. I got to break out the Blu-rays and the DVDs and listen to those commentary tracks. And so I've been big time on Venture Brothers the last couple months.
Yeah, I've been meaning to revisit it, and I watched up to season 4.5 when it was airing, and I'll be honest, like a lot of the stuff in this episode I had to look up. And then I was looking at the descriptions of episodes I had seen, and I was like, I forgot how much lore there was, how much continuity there was. I just remember I was still living in Ohio when the first half of season 4 aired. I know that because I was actually going to my mom's house to watch it as a 27-year-old man without a job, bringing his friends over to my mom's house with cable to watch it. And then before the second half of season 4 could air, that's when I started moving all around the country to find work. So it kind of just like erased Venture Brothers from my mind until we started talking about it, in light of the cancellation, and also when we did our past episode. But yeah, I've been meaning to revisit it, but it was cool to see wow, I just forgot how many little loose threads there were that are just hanging in this episode.
Yeah, it's really interesting to revisit too, because my experience kind of similar to Henry's there. I hadn't seen an episode in a while, so actually, to be honest, when it was first canceled, I didn't think much of it. I'm like, oh, that sucks. But I hadn't seen an episode in 2 years, so I wasn't that big a deal to me. But having marathoned over the last week, now I'm all sad again. Now I'm like, oh yeah, I like this show. That's right.
Yeah.
it's not fair that the Venture Brothers got canceled, but you can kind of understand why when you just like quiz yourself, like, oh yeah, like occasionally I forget this show exists. Like I was one of the biggest fans. I would watch it with my group of friends at the time, bought all the DVDs, but then after season 4 had its break, I just forgot about the show. So I mean, it's not the fault of, Doc Hammer and Jackson Public that it's just two guys, but the pace they have to make the show at kind of causes these lapses of time to pass between seasons where we all just like get amnesia about Venture Brothers, and then suddenly remember it's back.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy too. Because when you guys first announced your like this whole tier and everything, like I signed up and I even tweeted like, oh yeah, 3 times a year we're doing Venture Brothers, baby. Like I was all about it, and now I'm like, oh yeah, that show exists, right? Like it's that long gaps, like you said, really works against it. Although again, there's good reason for it. They're low budget. It's 2 guys doing most of the work, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, well, I did a little research on the budget stuff, and it's like if they had a season every year, they would be Adult Swim's biggest budget show. So I think basically they give them the equivalent of like 3 seasons budgets for a regular Adult Swim show, and they do it every 3 years. And I have my theories on why it was canceled. I mean,
there's all these like corporate acquisitions happening too, right?
Yeah.
Is that a big part of it?
I think, well, definitely Warner Brothers was tightening their belts. Like they just recently, at the time of this recording, cut a bunch of people from the DC Comics division. Like they slashed and slashed and slashed. And so despite the fact that they need all the content they can get for HBO Max, their big service, they also seem to be in a real belt tightening mood. And obviously like a well-regarded critically show that's already run 85 episodes over 17 years. If you're looking to cut things, why not the esoteric show that costs more money than every other show on Adult Swim?
It's like every layoff, the old timers who make the most money get laid off first. And also, I've heard that just like mere conjecture on the part of people speculating about this, there's acquisitions happening with big corporations. AT&T is involved or something like that, I think.
Well, AT&T owns Warner now.
Okay.
So
So what I heard was, again, pure conjecture, is that they want to end all the shows that have deals with Hulu, so they can just start making deals through HBO Max to stream those shows. And Venture Brothers is on Hulu now.
That's right. Yeah.
I think
it's also on HBO Max though, isn't it? HBO Max has Adult Swim stuff.
It has some Adult Swim stuff, but not Venture Brothers.
Yeah. So the speculation I heard is that they want to end all the end all the shows that have like ongoing Hulu contracts that they can't really get out of because they were made before HBO Max was like a dream in the head of a corporation, you know?
Yeah, they are definitely trying to take stuff back so that if you renew Venture Brothers, I think you're right there, Bob, that I bet it was under a scenario of if you renew Venture Brothers, the current deal is new episodes of Venture Brothers stream on Hulu. If you make another season, they go on Hulu first. And so if you're doing corporate economics, like why are you spending a bunch of money on a thing you can't put on HBO Max? But yeah, it's one of those things where you just get lost in the shot. Like this is so far above their pay grade of just making a show.
And I've heard things that perform much better than Venture Brothers, like Hot Streets. That was doing very good ratings. Is it called Hot Streets?
I think, yeah.
And that was canceled
I've never
too.
Heard of it, honestly.
That's like a Justin Roiland adjacent show.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those many shows when I see, I'm like, oh, it kind of looks like Rick and Morty. Like, oh yeah, sure. Yeah, it's been a bummer, but it at least got me to revisit a bunch of old episodes there's certainly some stuff in there that makes me go like, boy, this was written a long time ago, where they say words I think the most recent season, they had finally gotten notes on like, maybe don't say that word, maybe don't make a transphobic joke. But I also think the 7th season is their best season, like the Morphic trilogy. And I'm not going to reveal a bunch of stuff or spoil things for listeners, but like the Morphic trilogy is so huge and pays off a million things. Like it's the Venture Brothers movie. It's a 3-parter that does huge things in it. And it had such promise for the future spinning out of it too.
Yeah, that was the thing that surprised me. And total outside perspective. So everything you're saying about acquisitions and renewing the season, that all makes sense from, I'm sure, a corporate point of view. But from an outside point of view, it felt weird to be like 2 years and then you're going to cancel it. Because the last episode aired almost 2 years, almost exactly, I think, before the cancellation news came out.
If
so
you
it just
were,
felt like, wait, are they almost done with at least most of the season? Probably.
I think like if you were super online back in the days of early Adult Swim, you would read, was it Jackson Public's blog or Doc Hammer's
he had a
live journal?
Live journal a million years ago.
And that really taught you like how Adult Swim runs their business, and still does, to be honest. They wait till the last possible minute to renew your show, and that's when production starts. And that's what happened with Rick and Morty. That's why there was like 18 months between Rick and Morty seasons, or Mick and Rorty, whatever show you want to watch. And we pointed out during the Aqua Teen Hunger Force one we did back in October that like the cancellation of Venture Brothers, that means this era of Adult Swim is over. Like that was the final show to make it. I think Squidbillies still might exist in some way.
Sure.
Would you believe the main character, the voice of the main character, did not like Black Lives Matter and got fired?
Oh dear.
A guy with that voice?
No, I am shocked. Yeah.
But I don't know if Squidbillies is still in production. I don't know if starting in 2005 counts as being part of that first wave of shows or the early wave of shows, but it really is an end of an era.
Yeah. When you talk about your memories, like it is, I guess because it was just pulled over time and in such a long period of time that it didn't feel the same to me as like Simpsons is so crystallized for a specific part of my life. But for Venture Brothers, even though it also is 17 years of my life, for me, it's like, well, yeah, it's just Venture Brothers is always on. But if I then think of specifics of like, oh, I was 22 when the series premiered and I was a loser with my loser friends who were dicking around after high school. And then season 2 came out right after I moved to Berkeley to start this whole new chapter of my life. And season 4 ended while I was just getting started in the games press. Like, there are all these milestones that now feel so in the past to me, but Venture Brothers, because they only did 7 seasons across 2 decades, it always felt current. And it was one of those moments like, oh, I guess I aged instantly the second I found out it was over.
Yeah, when I was looking up, I think like August 2018 was the last time season 7 aired, and I was like, oh man, like now I can't believe it's over. You know, like just doing this podcast has made me all sad about this cancellation. But like you were saying about season 7, one of the interesting things about watching again also is, as good as it was, they did close off a lot of, without going to specifics, close off or answer a lot of like long, hanging plot questions and ideas. They still have some room for another season. Like I thought season 8 would happen, but there's a lot less of those grand mysteries after season 7 than before.
It seemed like season 8 was going to wrap it up. They'd be like, you know what, season 8, we'll finish the story there. Yeah. But and one other thing that has changed since the last time we talked about the Venture Brothers was the release of Ken Plume's amazing art book, Go Team Venture. Oh my gosh, what I definitely pulled out my weighty tome. I could break this table right now with it if I wanted to.
Honestly, release it as 4 books. I enjoy just how big it looks, but they're so impossible to read.
It's a little uncomfortable.
And then the binding breaks.
It's not the best bed read, yeah. If you haven't read it yet and you're a Venture Brothers fan, you really have to. It's great. When I say art book, it is an amazing collection of every like piece of character art they made internally, tons of background stuff, and also like the original comic pages Jackson Public did in like 2000 with his pitch for what the Venture Brothers would be. Like, it's just an amazing tome of also just interview after interview. Like, it is an oral history of Venture Brothers article, except in book form of like what must have been dozens of hours of interviews with Jackson Public and Doc Hammer about the series. I learned a lot. I certainly learned more about this episode from that book than I did from listening to their always entertaining DVD commentaries.
You know, if Ken Plume wrote that same amount of text as a feature for a website, he could have made $200. Actually, it'd be less than that now.
Though I got to think Dark Horse Publishing didn't pay him a ton.
No, but it was more than that.
But yeah, how about a quick history catch up on where this episode's at? If you want to hear a full, typical What a Cartoon history section on Venture Brothers, Bob did a great one on our first one for Escape of the House of Mummies. But let's take it up to season 5. Where are we at here? So, at this point, after season 4 is finished, this is all from the Go Team Venture book, Jackson Public's original deal with Adult Swim is over. He had made, via his agent, a deal for 4 seasons. And if they were going to do more episodes, they would have to negotiate a brand new deal with him. And that's also why season 4 is a double season of 2 sets of 8 episodes, so technically their longest season ever, which behind the scenes almost drove them crazy and made them want to quit the show entirely because it was too stressful.
There's like an 8 month break between the 2 chunks, right?
Yes,
a huge break.
Yeah.
It really felt like it was just 2 seasons, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a viewer.
But there was never so short a break between Venture Brothers seasons than 8 months.
I mean, that's still the Netflix model of like season 2, part 2. It's like, this is a separate season. You had a whole year separating them. But yeah, so season 4 aired in 2009 and 2010. Basically, you got 2 months of Venture Brothers and then a year off and then 2 months of Venture Brothers. And yeah, that season 4 finale, technically a decade ago. And if you watch it, they thought it could be the end. It's why the prom finale wraps up a lot of stuff. It could work as a finale if they never came back. Like there's a lot of periods on the end of sentences which this episode from as the season 5 premiere has to undo like half of them and just
Yeah, in this episode, they do a lot of that in the very first few minutes. Like the voice clip you had at the beginning of this episode was wrapping up one of the big ones from prom. Like,
Yeah.
oh, never mind, we're not ending this. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because there was at the time on the fan board type studies that I saw, there was rampant speculation like, oh shit, it's ending. This feels like an ending. It's going to end. There's no more Venture Brothers,
Yeah, I recall in 2010 having that moment of like, well, that's a chapter in my life that's over. Never again. And then I find out like, no, it's not. It's not over. It's not. Even though the prom ending with that song is like an amazing finale. The use of that Pulp song, it's
Yeah.
But yeah, as they go over a lot in the book, they just had a ton of production issues on the show, frustrations with the network. And then on top of that, like public felt this is pretty much done. I don't need to do more of it. And Doc Hammer even said he was so unhappy writing for the show. He's like, I don't know if I ever want to write again, period. Like anything.
Yeah, I remember that.
He says like one episode in season 4 he wrote in 2 days because his concepts kept getting rejected by Adult Swim. And so he's like, oh, you want a good episode? Fuck you. And he just writes it in 2 days. But but they also say while writing the finale, they started coming up with episode ideas for that could be done in a season 5. And they're like, oh man, we actually still love this universe. Damn it. We don't want to stop. So, as 2010 came to a close, Jackson Public worked out a new deal with Adult Swim, one where he actually got a raise and a bigger budget for the series. And also, to prevent the kind of burnout they had felt the last 2 seasons, they were going to just do 10-episode seasons with options for TV specials down the road, though that causes problems in the future for them.
Yeah. That was kind of a problem this season, wasn't it? With the
Yes. What would have been the finale of this season, they wanted to do as a special and they weren't allowed to. So they were just like, fine. Then the first 2 episodes of the next 10-episode season is All That and Gargantua 2, which is, again, it is a special. Like it is a giant mega finale as well. But another like reboot. Basically, so season 5, as they work it out, they know they want to work towards the big reset button that is the finale, All That and Gargantua 2. So this is the bridge towards that because, they felt season 5, it kind of sounds like a repiloting because it's like they're restarting the series. It's like how you hear every person who took over The Simpsons were like, we're going to focus back on the family kind of feeling.
Season 6 definitely lends itself to that, given that they cut out a lot of the recurring side characters for that season.
They move away from most of the side characters. I think they even in the book they admit they're like, we indulged too much in our side characters in season 4. Like we got away from the kids. And they wanted season 5 to focus back on the family. And that's why this episode is like a very Doc and Dean heavy episode for them. And they also, production-wise, changed. If you remember, they worked with Noodle Soup / World Leaders. That was the thing at the end. For season 5, he was able to get them to bring up the budget enough that they could work with Titmouse, a higher quality or more well-regarded American animation studio than World Leaders. So it was a big deal for them. They actually were like the first. Them and Super Jail were the start of Titmouse East, their New York offices.
Is that how our buddy in Jones Cordy ended up working on the show?
Actually, no. He was under the World Leaders.
Okay,
days.
got it.
Yeah, our buddy in Jones Cordy, like you said, there's basically as the way it sounded, if you didn't work on Venture Brothers, you probably didn't work on many other shows in New York because there were only so many cartoons there. That's why, like, on our podcast said, he's like, if I could live in New York and work in LA, I'd do it, but there's no way to do one or the other. You have to do one or the other.
Maybe that will be changing soon, though. You never know.
And also, it's the Jackson Public is good time. A longtime friends with Titmouse co-founder Chris Piranowski. Yeah.
Talked plenty about him in the past.
Yeah, again, having done the marathon, like you really notice the difference in the visuals.
Yes,
from season to season. Like the season 1 to season 2 jump is remarked upon a lot from storytelling and animation, but later seasons look so much better. Even like simple stuff like just backgrounds. Backgrounds look so much better in these later seasons than early stuff.
They shit on their work a lot on the commentary for one of these. I heard them say like, I can't watch anything before season 3. I just see every problem with it. Yeah, I had rewatched the Gargantua introducing episode from season 1, and I was like, "Oh my god, how did I think this looked great?" I also just see the flaws.
Well, it was
now.
next to everything else on Adult Swim, so like it looked great next to C-Lab.
Yeah, to just shuffling around in paint like Cap, whatever his name was.
Oh yeah,
the C-Lab people.
I mean, when I see the digital elements in one of those old seasons, I'm like, wow, that especially in HD. Well, the joke in season 1 was they'd have a fake HD opening, like fake letterbox opening, and then it'd be the normal square format for the rest of the episode. And then when they got to be actually HD, you could really see the difference too. So season 4 ends 2010, November 2010. August 2011, they do an 11-minute behind the music parody about Hank's band Shallow Gravy. So that's August 2011. And then silence on the Venture Brothers front until October of 2012, which is when they put out a Very Venture Halloween special.
So I'm not going to blame myself for forgetting about Venture Brothers at this point.
No, absolutely not.
And when that premiered in August 2012, I was like, all right, Venture Brothers is back. And then I find out, no, it is not, but it will be back in 2013.
We'll see you in 8 more months.
Well, and also taken on its own, the Venture Brothers Halloween special, it takes place during this episode of the season 5 finale. You see there's a scene in this where they go like, and that was my Halloween. So if you watch it by itself, it is incredibly confusing because multiple characters have gone through state changes that are not explained in that episode, even if you're a regular Venture Brothers viewer.
Yeah, that's where being a huge nerd helps because they announced this on the internet, which is not a thing you could do much previous to this time, really. I mean, the internet, as it is now, at least, has not been that way for all that long. But they announced basically, oh yeah, so the Venture Halloween special, just imagine it takes place during the first commercial break of this episode.
They've come a long way since I was refreshing Jackson Public's live journal every day to be like, did he have a new post? Did he say they got renewed? But yeah, so then finally the new season, which thanks to Very Venture Halloween airing in October, would only be a 9-episode season as it aired. And actually, no, because this was a combo of episodes, it was really only over 8 Sundays that the series aired. So 30 months after season 4 ended, season 5 actually began June 2013.
Yeah, they explain on the commentary, which I'm sure you listen to as well, is they have like 10 script slots. So Very Adventure Halloween was one of those. And then this episode, which is, an hour long thing, or 45 minutes of animation, gets 2 of those script slots. So yeah.
And they always write backwards, which is crazy. Like they know which episodes they want to do in the season and a general arc for the season, and then they go, okay, now that we know all that, let's write the first episodes that plant the seeds of those things. So even in the book, they're like, we do that the wrong way. This is not how you do TV. But they're 2 esoteric guys. Like there was this really great interview with them after the cancellation of them saying like, only we can do it. We've written every episode but 1 episode of Venture Brothers, and they just have the same brain and they know each other too well. They can't have a writer's room, they say.
I don't think they would be allowed to do this again, and I hope that they are if they end up making more or a final movie. I feel like anyone else would be like, you guys need writers, you need like all these roles assigned to people, but they were like in the lawless days of early Adult Swim where it's like, 2 guys can make a show, why not?
Yeah, that's my concern about getting picked up. Like, there's a lot of rumors about, like we were talking about earlier with HBO Max might pick them up or whatever. But that's a good point about, like, they might kind of, I don't want to get too haughty about it, but, corrupt the show. Not corrupt the show, but, kind of ruin the magic of it. It might be a better way to put it. That's where a 1-hour special might be the best at this point, because then they probably would get that to themselves, and they could probably wrap up a lot with that, really.
I had already felt this, but after hyper watching this episode, I'm like, the majority of scenes in this show are just combos of characters having the conversations that Public and Hammer would have all the time.
I will say, and I love this episode and I love the show, it is a strength of the show, but it is also like in some ways a weakness because every character pairing, it's like you guys have access to the exact same pool of pop culture references. No matter who you are, what your place in life is, you are all pulling from this same realm of pop culture references. It's interesting, I'll say that, but you can tell it is two brains firing back and forth.
Yeah,
I think the strength of it there is just that you're correct about that, but their pool is obscure, which is I think what makes it work a little bit
Definitely,
better.
yeah.
And that's where a lot of other shows tend to reference stuff that's happening right now, or whatever's popular right now, or was popular 8 months ago when they were producing it.
Yeah,
like you were saying, these guys are 70s guys. They reference all sorts of weird shit I never heard of.
No one else is referencing Heart to Heart on television.
No. Well, that's one thing I like with occasionally they create a character like Dermot that challenges themselves to be like, no. What would a person who was a teen in the 90s reference? Like, okay, well, he would dress up as the Crow for Halloween. That's what Dermot would do.
And brag about going to Fight Club as a kid or whatever.
Yeah, or saying like, I snuck out of Elmo Goes to Grouchland to see this. Dermot is one of my favorite. Well, I don't like Dermot because I knew Dermots in my life who were jerks, but it is a perfect version of that type of guy. Like Dermot is one of their greatest achievements, I think.
Dermot hits the show like just crazy too because he actually resembles a human teenager and he hangs out with like Hank, who still has that like I don't know like moon face or you want to call it like.
Yeah, no, Hank doesn't look normal and he's also crazy. I mean, by season 7, everyone's saying to him like, you are crazy. Like you're not a normal person at all. You resist turning normal in every possible way.
Actually, they get really big into undiagnosed ADHD for Hank.
Yes, yeah, they do that.
And like upon watching this, and this wasn't the case with the season 2 episode we watched, but watching this, I felt like they have grown so far beyond their original premise, which was really good. But they just ran out of ways to do like a Johnny Quest send up with 2 naive characters in like a realistically dangerous setting.
Yeah,
and they have grown so far beyond that. It's just so interesting to see.
I think the best parts of season 6 and 7 to me are when they just accept. So this show started as Jackson Public was working on The Tick. And he's like, well, these are Tick ideas, but this is too much like super spy, super science stuff. Not exactly Tick tone. And then in season 6, when they move to New York City and it's full of superheroes, it's like, oh, this is The Tick now. But it's awesome. Because Jackson Public is great at writing The Tick. Like he's excellent at it.
But even before that, over the course of time, they got increasingly interested in that whole Guild of Calamitous Intent OSI shenanigans.
Yeah.
Which is barely one step removed from like superheroes and supervillains organizing themselves into play dates.
I will say the Sphinx thing is one of my least favorite like subplot. Like it's why I don't revisit season 4 as much. I'm just like, this Sphinx stuff is boring. I don't like seeing Brock as a member of Sphinx. It's just, especially because season 4 ends with them going like, no more Sphinx. We're done with Sphinx. Fuck it. Like
the idea they had it for originally it felt like a decent one, but they just couldn't get much mileage out of it. Like their whole thing was like, oh, we go after the people who won't put on a costume, but then they only did that like once, and then they never actually did their job again for the rest of the season.
Was season 4 when they sort of get Brock off the show for the most part?
Brock's off the show for almost all of season 4.
Was that like a Warburton is he wants bigger bucks kind of deal?
I think it might have been Warburton bucks and to save money, but also I think the season 3 finale is a Brock spectacular.
Yeah.
And I think that was them going like, we can't just have every episode be Brock that has a cool action scene that saves the day. Like they challenge themselves most seasons to be like, what if we take this away from ourselves? I think season 5 or really season 6 is when they finally go like, why are we restraining ourselves from doing every good story we could do? Like why put these restraints on us?
Yeah, I remember at the time people sorely missed Brock, especially in season 4. People were like, "Where's Brock coming back? Hatred sucks." Like,
yeah,
which that was a popular sentiment that I saw.
Which I do like that Hatred seems to know that viewers hate him, and he's like, "No, come on, guys, I'm great, please." Though I mean, when you start the character as a reformed pedophile, you're in a real deficit of getting people to like.
And reformed is in quotation marks. Honestly.
Yes, yeah. They certainly did their best to retcon that. Like, you know what? No, that's not who he is. It was pills that did it to him. That he was dosed with.
Yeah.
He's not that. Like, but that's actually one of the things they solve a retcon in season 5. It wouldn't be a Venture Brothers season if there wasn't at least one massive retcon that completely invalidates one or two previous episodes. But yeah, the overseas animation on this season and all going forward would also not only be handled by Titmouse, but also sent overseas to Korean studio Digital E-mation. And as the show was going swimmingly until it wasn't, as the news broke September 2020 that it was canceled. Maybe when you guys are listening to this a couple months from now, there's been some good news. But the most recent thing we saw was an NPR interview a couple weeks ago, a written one, not an audio one, of just Public and Hammer reflecting on like, no, it's really over and that sucks. We don't like that. They're especially upset because season 7 ends on a cliffhanger. And they say like that was fully with the knowledge that we were definitely coming back for season 8. They said as much as they tease the audience sometimes, if they were to do a last episode, they said they never would want to leave you with questions or left hanging or anything like that. And they are as disappointed as anybody else about it. In the article, they seem hopeful that while they might not get a true finale, they won't get a season 8. They're hopeful that there could be more, but nothing is final right now. And it's, you always hear like, oh, they're hopeful. Oh, well, it'll probably happen. There'll be a finale movie. And then you're waiting 7 years for that finale movie for something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any actual insight into it, but my own personal guess is the most likely thing does seem like they'll get that 1 hour special. And then if they're lucky, or maybe unlucky, depending on how it works out. Again, there's a lot of talk about the HBO Max picking them up. Like a lot of people seem to think that's a thing. That's just entirely speculation by random websites, really.
I mean, anything from the 90s comes back, and they are so close to having existed in the 90s that they might get that effect.
Yeah, isn't Saved by the Bell coming back? I mean, come on.
Oh, yeah.
It would have been back sooner, but their filming was halted by the virus, and now they were able to finish their season.
You know what? No Screech, no deal. He was the glue. He was the glue of that show.
Well, he needs to stay out of the tabloids if he's like Mario Lopez cannot trust his safety on the set with Dustin Diamond.
No more knife fights, Dustin.
I mean, if I'm HBO Max and I am trying to get as many signups as possible, being the exclusive home for a niche but intensely popular with its niche fandom, who will all predominantly, I think, sign up for HBO Max at least for a month to watch it. Like, you want content like that, but maybe they also think that's too big a fish to fry. Plus, they spent $500 million on South Park.
Oh, shit.
So,
yeah, but South Park's extremely popular. But I guess to your point there, though, Venture Brothers probably doesn't cost that much in relation to something like a South Park to produce. I mean, even it's expensive by Adult Swim standards, but by regular show standards, I don't think it's that expensive.
It's definitely got to be cheaper than Rick and Morty, I would think.
Yeah, or cheaper than even like Archer, probably, like to give a similar type of show type of thing.
But that's the history of Venture Brothers up to now. Why don't we take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the season 5 premiere double episode, What Color is Your Cleansuit?
You are the last drink I never should have drunk. You are the body hidden in the trunk. You are the habit I can't seem to keep. You are my secrets on the front page every week. You are the car I never should have bought. You are the dream I never should have caught. You are the cut that makes me hide my face. You are the party that makes me feel my age. And like a cockroach I can see, but I just can't avoid. Like a plane I've been told I never should board. Like a film that's so bad, but I gotta stay till the end. Let me tell you now, it's looking for you, my good friend.
Carvel is America's freshest ice cream. These families make the cakes right there in the store, of course. For a limited time, they've got Brock Sampson, the cake. And here comes the Monarch cake as well. Yep, it's a great combination for your friends and family. You want one for a party, you can get one, Please phone 1-800-614-1681 for instructions on how. Thank you, and go Team Venture, folks.
Welcome to the break, everybody, and you're always welcome at Hank's. I'm Henry Gilbert.
Hey everybody, it's Bob Mackey, and I recommend stretching halfway through this 3-hour-long podcast. Don't want any blood clots.
And a big thank you to our guest this week, premium patron Dave. We really appreciate what he gave us quite an excuse to really dig into Venture Brothers and have a good time with it. And, you know, one of the saddest things is that I had hoped in between, it was one of the few times I was hoping we would be proven wrong in the time it takes for the episode to post, but it has not been uncanceled yet, unfortunately. But yes, thanks to patrons like Dave, we're able to do this podcast as our full-time jobs.
That's right. If you want to support the show and get a ton of extra stuff on top of that, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up for $5 a month. You'll get access to every episode of our shows 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, and also access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That includes limited miniseries like Talking Critic, Talking Futurama, Talking Mission Hill, and Talking of the Hill. And coming very soon, we will have another season of Talking of the Hill coming in late March. 11 new episodes for $5 and up patrons. We also have interviews, deleted scene specials, and season wrap-ups for Talking Simpsons behind the paywall. And that's not all. If you sign up for $10 a month, you get all the $5 stuff plus access to one mega-long podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher.
Yeah, Bob, you're talking about the What a Cartoon Movie podcast. If you like this weekly What a Cartoon podcast, you'll know that at the end of each month, you get to hear a preview of what the $10 and up subscribers get every month at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. This month, in just a couple weeks, you're going to get to hear the free preview for the Studio Ghibli classic, Whisper of the Heart. Before that, Dexter's Lab Ego Trip, and the end of Evangelion, and an awesome one's coming next month, the DuckTales movie. And that is in addition to 2 whole years of previous What a Cartoon Movie podcasts. We have covered so many great topics. You are missing out if you're not hearing all of it, in addition to all the $5 stuff you get when you sign up at the $10 level to hear it all. So please consider going to premium at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
And if you've never been on Patreon before, it is so easy to sign up. And once you do sign up, you're given a code. You have access to that code at all times. You drop that code into whatever you use to listen to podcasts. And that way you can download our bonus podcast alongside all of your normal free podcasts in your podcasting lifestyle. And there's also an app for any smart device you might have, a Patreon app, that will let you listen to our bonus content that way. But either way you do it, is so easy to access everything we got going behind the scenes at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
So thank you again for listening, and now let's dig into the Season 5 premiere episode of The Venture Brothers. We're back, and you just heard the classic Venture Brothers theme song, which you don't actually get to hear all that much in season 5. They rarely have an opening because there's just too much. You get a real sense that they overwrite every one of these, and so they cannot give up 30 seconds to an opening to their show.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I like about the show, I guess. It feels overstuffed with ideas. It's never a show that feels short on ideas, I guess.
It never feels like, oh, they had to pad this out or whatever. It's that the biggest problem with the show is just you go like, oh man, I wish they had more time to explore this idea. Like there's one concept in this episode alone, the blunderer training video. I'm like, that could be a whole 5-minute sketch.
I wondered if it was before they had to cut it or something.
I bet they're like, well, this is all we could fit in this wonderful idea we had.
I mean, they have Wyatt Cenac actually voiced Mr. Blunders. Yeah, maybe they didn't.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And do we have the reference for the episode title?
No, what's it from?
It's from the 70s. Would
Of
you believe
course,
it? And it's it's the self-help book. What color is your parachute? And I know it because of Mystery Science Theater.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was still publishing until pretty recently, although they updated the title to more internet times.
Apparently, they update it like every year.
Wow. So it's like a self-help book then?
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's effective. I don't know what it does or says, but it's been around since the 70s. So
if it didn't start a cult, then I don't think it's a good enough self-help book. But yeah, the episode, like all episodes, they're either written by Jackson Publick or Doc Hammer, or in some cases, both guys. And as they talk about how their writing system works, they obviously talk through an outline of an episode together and plan it all together as a two-man writing room. And then when it comes time to actually write a scene, they then just give each other scenes like, okay, this Monarch and Dr. Mrs. the Monarch scene is yours. This scene between Billy and Pete White, that's mine. And they just kind of build it from there. Also, the director on this season and every episode is Jackson Publick. Because I don't think Doc Hammer doesn't draw, I don't think. He writes, and he was also the sole editor of the series for the first 4 seasons, and is still kind of the editor on the show, even for 5 and onward.
And you created the opening, right?
Yes, yeah. And also, though, other folks I want to credit in this are... There's 6 different borders on this one. Like, there's too many story borders to name, and 5 animation directors.
Wow, yeah.
Though I'll name 3 key people here. There's animation direction supervisor Miguel Martinez Joffrey. He seems to be a New York-based animator who worked on a ton of stuff. He worked on previous seasons of Venture Brothers as well. And he's a New York-based animator who he has credits going back all the way to the original run of Doug episodes on Nickelodeon. Then the 2 storyboard directors for this season are Frank Gresham and L.T. Myers. Gresham worked on a lot of classic Pee-wee cartoons, like the quickie cartoons you'd see that appear on a Pee-wee's Playhouse. He also worked on, like many people we talk about from the 90s on this podcast, he worked on MTV animated logo stuff. And he worked on Sniz Fondue.
Oh, yeah.
And also early Titmouse production, MTV's Downtown. Another series we got to do someday on What a Cartoon. That was a favorite of mine. And currently, Gresham is a teacher at the SVA, the art school in Virginia. And meanwhile, L.T. Myers got his start on Codename Kid Next Door, and he worked on season 4 of Venture Brothers. Currently, he works on Bless the Hearts and Muppet Babies.
All right.
The new Muppet Babies, obviously.
Don't care for the penguin on there.
And so, yes, this episode begins with a lot of resetting from Operation Prom. It's just they have to show what happened. If you didn't watch Operation Prom right before watching this one,
I did not.
You will be completely confused about, wait, why are all these people are arriving right after the scene they were last in from Operation Prom?
I was looking up a lot of things when when this first started.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about this whole like opening section of it. 'Cause I was thinking like I should probably pick an episode that's not too lore heavy. And it's like, oh right, the first like 10 minutes is pretty lore heavy. Because the actual main plot of this episode about all the clean suits and the project, all that is pretty self-contained. But yeah, this opening sequences we gotta follow up with what happened last season.
Yeah. I was a bit worried wading into this, but then the plot proper picks up and it's easy to follow.
Yeah, this whole section mainly is about just resetting things like such as seemingly Molotov cocktease died with Monstroso at the end of season 4. Then we find out, no, actually she escaped with Monstroso, and they will appear later in season 5.
I actually remember at the time, too, though, the Molotov cocktease and Monstroso thing. They said, like, even as that happened, even before they got renewed, they're like, hey, if they didn't die on screen, they're not necessarily dead. So they were thinking pretty much all along, like, if we get another season, they're coming back. I don't think they ever had another plan for that. unless like you were talking about earlier, unless it actually ended, like, okay, fine, they're dead, whatever. If the show's dead. in Venture Brothers world, if you don't see a corpse, they are definitely not dead and they will return. They always do. Yeah.
But yeah, so they have that one to fix. They've got Dean. This is one they just keep following with because the last scene in Prom is Dean getting his heart broken and realizing like, wait, I was a stupid dweeb who had a crush on a goth girl who didn't like me back because I'm a dweeb.
It's too close to home. I'm sorry. can't watch that.
And so he finally like swore for the first time. He said like, fuck you at the end. That was the last word of season 4. And then they come back here and he's like, no, seriously, go fuck yourself. I'm done. Like,
Yeah, it's weird because that was actually kind of a growing up moment for him, which you wouldn't normally think with that sort of talk. But it's kind of a growing up moment of like, you need to assert yourself a little bit. Maybe it's not the best way to do it, but it's sort of like a self-realization moment, like you're saying, of like, yeah, like you need to enter the real world, not this fantasy dreamland of the Venture Brothers.
I think a point they make with Dean's growing up throughout the next like 3 years is not that once you become the surly teen who says fuck you to authority, that should not be the end of your growing up. It's just the next step in it. And if he doesn't go through it, then he's never going to grow up. And so, yeah, for Dean, it was that he spent years pining after this goth girl that lived in his place because it was the only girl he even knew. And then he finds out that, well, no, she lives a life outside of you and has a boyfriend. And so she thinks of you as a friend. And Dean didn't like that. And that's also what I like in this episode, that when Dean instantly trades up for a new crush, it does feel like the kind of crush that guys who are into goth girls graduate from. They're like, no, I'm going to pick the hot nerd girl with the Buddy Holly glasses.
It's true.
And then also we see that like Sphinx is done. OSI is back. And also Prom ended with 21/Gary quitting. He wasn't going to be a henchman anymore. And seemingly it was set up that he was going to be a member of Sphinx and just be like in the same group as Brock. And then this episode starts with just like completely dumping that. Like, no, you're not. You don't get to be a secret agent. You're done. Go over there.
But
people are going crazy with the idea of like Gary as in OSI or Gary as, this really super good guy. And this whole season is about how like he's not really cut out for that.
Yeah. I really love the character of Gary. Like he grew so much over the series, but ultimately he realizes like, I want to be the best henchman I can be. Like that is his ultimate self. He wants to be.
I do miss 24 though.
Yeah, that was gutsy on their part to kill 24. And I did rewatch Prom before this, and there's actually like a really touching scene in that of when 21 finally gives up the ghost on 24. That also is about the Mr. Wendell music video by Arrested Development.
Nice.
But I do love that. Yeah, the way he has to give it up too is just he randomly stumbles into a guy who can see ghosts. Like, no, there's no ghost there, man. Like, he knows when Orpheus is like, no, what are you talking about? There's no ghost. No, that guy's still alive. What are you talking about? He's like, oh shit.
Mr. Wendell's not dead. What? Yeah. And then we also cut to Dermot's house where Hank slept like on the floor after bailing on Dean. There's again, if you didn't watch Prom right before this, the way Nikki says you smell like gasoline, that is completely unexplained unless you watch the episode about how they used a bunch of gasoline to light stuff on fire at the end of the season 4 finale.
It's such an absurd situation that happens too. I mean, I guess we shouldn't just review all of Prom, but yeah, they dress up like ghosts, Ku Klux Klan, and then they try to burn Triana's name into wood, but of course only the T burns. Guess how the rest of it goes.
That's a classic sitcom goof 'em up on Dean, and that's like Dean's last stupid thing he'd do in classic Dean style. He finally got more self-awareness after that. And also we get to meet Nikki, who, I won't spoil everything that happens in episodes before this one, but we know the deal with Nikki and why she's into Hank.
There are so many babes on this show, by the way. Horny animators. And hunks. There's hunks to go around, too. Plenty of hunks.
Quite a hunk. And
yeah, it's so weird, though, that she likes that he smells like gasoline. I mean, that's unrelated to anything else we're talking about, I guess, but like I'm just like, the smell of gasoline is good to you?
Well, Nikki's a very damaged doll, I think. She's been through a lot. So.
Personally, I like the smell of gasoline, but not off a rag or anything. Just that when you're pumping it into your car.
It smells good for a minute. I mean, I've forgotten that smell now. It's been so long since I've even been near a gas station. And then one of the biggest, just flush away of a Prom ending was that It ended with Princess Tiny Feet reconnecting with Hatred, seemingly writing Hatred off of the show because he's back together with his wife. And then they're like, you know what? No, actually, she was just hanging out with him all night and she is still with this new guy. And Hatred is still a sad divorced man. Like,
By the way, that guy is he's Scorpio, and the last time he showed up, I think, was with the Captain Sunshine episode where it seemed like Sunshine murdered him, actually. I guess he lived through that.
yeah, that's right. I thought he crushed him in his Scorpio car. That's right.
Again, I guess he lived, but man, that seemed like the thing that would kill a person.
Yeah, I like Scorpios are just a fun, easy design of like, yeah, you can assume this is like a toy-based villain, like he's a He-Man villain or something like that. But I mean, if Hatred's going to still be a regular on the show, then he can't reconnect with Princess Tiny Feet because the only people allowed to be in a stable heterosexual relationship on Venture Brothers is Monarch and Dr. Mrs.
That's right.
the Monarch. And even that kind of gets tested most seasons of the show. But yes, after all of that, we then cut to Monarch, and Heath seems to think that everything's fine.
I'm gonna take a nice hot bath and climb straight into bed.
You go on ahead. I'm gonna wait down here.
Wait for what, sweetie?
You know, 21 will be along any minute now. Can't wait to see the look on his face.
Oh, he's not coming back, hon. Remember? He quit.
Exactly what Venture will think. God, he played it beautifully. I almost believe in myself.
I mean...
Jeez, I hope he brings the Monarch mobile back. And anyway, don't wait up for me. I'll be up soon. Any minute now.
Who are you? What the hell are you doing in that uniform? Where the hell are Brock and Shore leave? And what the hell happened here last night?
It's poor Gary. They just cut to him being kicked out of the place, but
It's paid up to the end of the year, though, right?
that's true, yeah.
You can hang out.
That's good severance on his part anyway. And I also like that the Monarch, the whole season, he is just entirely in denial. He's like, well, yeah, 21 is just undercover at the Venture compound. He's coming back. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Like, why would he try to convince Venture that he quits? Because, like, you know, and Monarch, of course, doesn't realize this, but Venture doesn't really give a shit about Monarch anyway. Like, like if the Monarch never bothered him again, he wouldn't even notice. He's like, oh, okay.
I mean, Doc is the most selfish asshole on the entire show. Like, there's a reason why Dr. Killinger is correct in saying that Doc should become a supervillain, and that's him living his best life.
I mean, this episode shows that, but of that as it is.
Yeah. Then the last scene is Doc being woken up to a call from his former Eaton twin brother, JJ. And he finds out that he was supposed to have been building a ray shield for months now. And then he also wakes up next to a bug lady, which the end of Prom would make you think that they killed all the bug ladies. But I guess Doc had sex with one of them. And,
they were all pretty wasted, you know? I mean,
He seems pretty surprised.
yeah, it is a real hungover morning after. I mean, this too shows you how far in advance they're planning here, because this episode begins with JJ talking about the rebuilding of Gargantua, making Gargantua 2 the giant space station. They're doing that throughout the season to pay off in the big mega double episode. I also like that JJ has the tone of being like the super successful guy who has a loser brother he's throwing a job to. He's just like, come on, Doc, I gave you an easy job. You could even pull this off.
I mean, that's 100% correct. There's even the previous episodes, too, where he was on a three-way call with, like, what was it, Raji, who's definitely not Haji from Johnny Quest.
Yeah, totally different.
And they're like, oh, is he asking for money again? Like, he's just a known loser to anyone who knows who he is at all.
Everyone laughs at him behind his back. And for good reason. Doc's a bad person, as is shown throughout the whole show. Then the opening ends with Doc terrified of the bug lady in his bed, screaming Brock, and it's a really great just camera move, like zooming out of his room, and then as he's screaming Brock, you see Brock among the limo wreckage to see that Molotov and Monstroso have escaped.
This episode does a ton of that throughout. Like it transitions on like who is this guy? Then it transitions to someone explaining who that guy is. Like they do that. They love that bit for this episode.
I think especially it's a favorite of Doc Hammer to just have dialogue in separate places lead one into the other. Who is that? That person is this guy. Like they, the way they cut between the two is great. But yes, comes back from commercial. OSI, Sphinx folks are all moving out, going back to OSI, which what Brock's going to be for the rest of the season is an OSI guy, which is it's just S.H.I.E.L.D. from Marvel Comics. Like they have a helicarrier and everything. And I like hunter gatherers. Like Hunter S. Thompson just is that guy. They're the same dude. And I think Public does a pretty good Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an excuse to do a Hunter S. Thompson impression.
Don't kill yourself, God damn it. But yeah, they then just abandon 21, tell him to file for unemployment. But they are nice enough to let him just stay there.
It is funny how casual they are with that, because that's high grade military equipment that they were using for last season. They're like, whatever, here's the keys. Leave us alone,
It seems like they're all in disrepair anyway. They're like, he can't even start. Later he says, like, I can't turn on the Sphinx mobile. He's I like that he gets to call himself Sphinx Commander while he basically just stays somewhere for 4 months to figure his shit out. And I mean, Doc's not going to question it because he just lets them pay. Like, if somebody paid, they can do whatever they want on his property. He just needs the money. But yes, then we go to Doc as he explains what they'll be doing for the rest of the episode.
Gentlemen, I give you Gargantua 2, the largest, most advanced space station mankind has ever seen. But space is a cluttered, untidy place, not unlike, say, the utility drawer of the average American kitchen. Asteroids, meteors, space junk. These are but a few of the many perils that await Gargantua 2 in the cold vastness of space, to say nothing of cosmic rays. Thank you, Hank. Which is why Venture Industries has been subcontracted to design and build an electromagnetic plasma ray shield to protect Gargantua 2, like so. Hank! The real one will cover the whole thing, of course.
Well, a project of this scale is going to take years.
We have 3 months.
Impossible.
Not if we all pitch in and work together. Where's Dean?
Whoa! Dean with the new look.
Good morning, son. We were just going over the plans for the new... Was that a can of gasoline?
I love this whole presentation that of course, Doc is just winging, and he's like, it's like your utility drawer in the kitchen.
It's like things around him are now like the props.
It's surprising that he'd be so complimentary of Gargantua 2, though, because that's his brother's project, and he can't tie it to himself in some way. Like with Gargantua 1, he was all about, oh well, I was on that station, that's my dad's thing, so really it's mine. All that ego stuff.
Yeah, it's true. He's I love when you can find a scene where Doc is telling a lie to himself to justify doing something, but in this case, he's just like, I'm just going to explain all this stuff to the guys. But he needs, as usual, if he has to actually do something scientific, he calls in Pete and Billy because he cannot do anything. Like, he is not a scientist. Later in the episode, he just plays Oregon Trail and pretends he's running schematic.
And is served like girl drinks.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, his whole scientific deal is hard to pin down, because there's some episodes where he did create something legitimately super scientific. It's usually a failure in some other way, like the Joy Can from early on, or the Ray, or stuff like that. But it's really always undone by his laziness, because he just like, fuck it, it's close enough, and then it teleports half his body into a TV or something.
I think the walking eye is probably the most success he's ever had. And also, I like that Dean's transformation into a goth himself, like, is so perfectly teen. Like, Doc Hammer on the commentary is talking about, like, Dean is him. He's talking about, he's using it to go through his teenage years of his goth phase and all that.
Bad facial hair on top of that.
Oh, yeah. Let it grow out, become a cool guy. And yeah, I just love Dean's transformation. It was long overdue. Like, Dean needed to change something because he's supposed to be the smarter one of the brothers. Basically, Dean is Archie and Hank is the lead Hardy boy. And they're both Hardy boys. Hank never wants to stop being that. He's fine with it. But Dean is finally outgrown it. I mean, that was a major thing they did in season 3 going forward too, was once it was revealed that the boys were clones and then they kill off every clone, they keep aging in ways they never did before. Like, it's implied that they were teens for like a decade because they kept dying and resetting. This is the first time they've actually aged, so Dean can go through a goth teen phase.
It's interesting, too, that he does at least correctly identify, to some extent, some of his problems. Like when he burns the learning bed and he he's yelling at or getting mad at Rusty, he's correctly identified the source of his problems, which is his dad and his inability to let him have a real life. So
yeah, and I like that he can actually be kind of nasty or passive-aggressive about his dad later in the episode. Like he
immediately folds and ends up working for him again. man.
Yeah, well, because he's still his father's son. He's just like, you know what else? And I also love how obvious they always write it that, like, Doc loves Dean much more than Hank. To the extent that Doc can love anyone, he loves Dean much more than Hank.
I mean, Rusty's own justification, which he's incorrect about now, but his justification is that, oh, well, Hank knows it's all bullshit, but, Dean loves his life. And it's almost reverse. Like, Hank knows it's bullshit, but he likes the bullshit.
Yes.
Whereas Dean isn't into it at all.
Yeah, the pain of knowing he's a clone the whole season, and then Hank's reaction to it at the end of the season really shows where they're at as characters. And yeah, Dean starts burning stuff that we've seen in so many episodes. His old sweater vest, the Brisbee wallet, his Giant Boy detective novels. But old Mr. Ricci, he doesn't go in the fire. He still saves Mr. Ricci.
He still hasn't given up all of his childhood, not yet.
And his Spider-Man underoos. Like, that was really, in season 1, I was already probably going to identify with Dean. But when I saw he slept in Spider-Man underoos, I was like, all right, Dean's my guy. That's who I am.
Well, Hank, who's usually the quote-unquote cooler, at least not cool, but cooler than Dean at least. But he has the lame Aquaman underoos, which is just an odd choice.
Yeah, his love of the bat is much more better than his Aquaman ones. But yeah, also Dean, as Doc is talking back to him, he says, mind your own business, which his fact about the penny is true. I had to Google a lot in this episode, but the first penny really does says mind your business on the back of it.
Lots of pennies in this episode.
It was supposedly designed by Ben Franklin, right?
That's right, yeah. And also in Dean's speech about how he's never lived his life, he says he's never even kissed a girl, which he will get to do by the end of this episode. So they set it up, they deal with it. And
well, season 4 had a lot of Hank progression, so I think the season was aimed at giving Dean something similar. Then you see it start here.
Yeah, Hank finally got laid and got to forget about it. Now it's Dean's turn to do it. And as Dean announces he wants to move into the attic, that's when Hank reacts to it very positively and says if he wants to Greg Brady it. That is a reference to the season 4 finale of The Brady Bunch, where Greg Brady, the oldest of the Brady boys, moves into the attic to get some space on his own. But then Marcia wants to move into the attic as well. And a lot of 70s fanfic was written about that concept, I'll tell you.
Flowers in the attic. And also Mike Seaver on Growing Pains lived in the attic.
Right,
he moved out to the nice apartment above their garage.
And remember on Doug when Skeeter moved to the basement and Doug thought Skeeter was moving? That's our Brady Bunch's stuff.
Doug should have asked more questions.
Wait, so did you guys ever get to move into the attic or basement?
Oh, no, I did not. I had only shared a room with my brother until I was 5 or 6, and then I got my own room. And so and growing up in Florida, there was no basement, and we didn't really have an attic either. So no,
the basement was like the hangout space. It's a finished basement, unlike those unfinished basements with spiders and giant pieces of wood everywhere.
Oh, you're lucky. I had a bunk bed up with my brother until my older sister moved out. And you get to kind of graduate to the big room over there. And then when he moved out, I got to graduate to the big room over there.
Oh, nice, man.
This little rotation system.
See, as the older brother, I got the good room first. But
yeah. Lucky jerk.
Also, the Greg Brady thing, the only reason I knew it was I didn't know what episode it was, but I knew it as the reference in the Brady Bunch sequel movie.
Okay.
They took that plot thread of Greg and Marcia having to share the attic together, but they do more winks towards the step incestuous concept of it.
You know what? Let's go back to that. We just talked about Saved by the Bells coming back as a serious show. No, make your Brady Bunch movie version of Saved by the Bell. It's time.
Yeah.
We've internalized all those plots like we did with Brady Bunch. Make jokes about those now.
Well, Brady Bunch went through the similar thing of they were like, okay, it's been 15 years since the Brady Bunch. Here is a serious story about the Bradys, and it's them getting older and they're adults and they live their own separate lives. After that, it failed in the ratings. That's when they thought, okay, postmodern time. Let's just make fun of it and every reference you remember.
God, Saved by the Bell would be perfect for that. It's so
really
perfect.
Would be.
It was honestly kind of a bad show.
It's awful.
It's a terrible show.
Yeah.
I
watched hell of it too. It's bad.
I think the Brady Bunch is a better show.
It is, yeah. It definitely is a better show.
But yeah, so they are then in a montage of setting up each other's separate rooms. Dean's kind of thinky, booky, nerdy, gothy upstairs room. And Hank then also gets rid of his learning bed and just has like a big double bed of his own. But I also, though, in the montage, we get to see them building up to be ready for a bunch of new students coming in. And the montage, it's not just Doc hollowing out more of his dad's old projects to just rebuild the pieces, but returning to the Eden leads to one of the darkest jokes in the entire series, I think. It made me laugh with pain of just like, oh, God. It's hatred killing baby gorilla.
It reminds me of, I think, like the first episode where Brock kills an alligator with a knife. It's like, oh, wait, it's pregnant. And then he gets a can of gasoline and sets it on fire.
Right,
but you don't see it. You don't see it.
It is from a similar place.
You don't see him setting the babies on fire.
I mean, the Eden was the site of a similarly dark joke from last season where a baby kid died to those gorillas, and then he quickly cloned a new one. It's like, oh yeah, he's just that's just like spaghetti sauce or something on him.
That's right. Yeah, the cloning. Oh God, the buddy system. What a dark episode. Yeah, when they get into the Eden after killing the gorilla and the baby, they then are also cleaning up bones, which have to be from like other people that Doc just abandoned inside of there to die.
Well, I think that may not have been directly Doc's fault in that case. It's probably his dad's fault, because that was the site of like astronauts, testing for long-term living.
Oh yeah,
and
you're right.
Jonas was also famously, not giving a shit about other people as well. So I think that one is on Jonas. I think is what I'm trying to get at.
You're right. Yeah, Jonas has quite a body count that is more and more revealed over time. So yeah, after you do see, even in the next scene, Hatred is sobbing after killing the gorillas. Like the way he just starts to cry as he reloads the gun, and then the next shot of him building up the tents, he's crying some more.
I would have liked that to haunt him for more of the episode, honestly.
Yeah. Well, he's got a lot going on in this episode. He's haunted by a lot of things. Then after the montage is over and they've gotten all ready for their new folks, we get an explanation of why they don't even have any money. It's because Doc was given, he reveals that he had this assignment over a year ago and just wasted money until the last minute, which is, he's a bad guy, but I can't say I don't empathize with being that much of a procrastinator.
That's kind of like what writers are notorious for, like writing a book, like you blow through your advance and then write the book like at the last second.
Exactly, yeah.
That's when I do my best work,
Yeah, I work great under pressure, guys, okay?
You can't rush genius.
But yes, to get money, Doc needs to sell off some more of his childhood, which he constantly is doing. I'm shocked he even has any left. But that is when we get the sort of first appearance of St. Cloud. Technically, like, this character goes all the way back from the garage sale episode in season 1.
Okay.
The guy who pulls out the magazine like, ooh, Sarah Michelle Gellar. It's that same character design, but this is when St. Cloud becomes a true character. And I love this intro scene of him.
Ah, here he comes.
Is it Bruce Wayne?
Okay, no, not him. It can't be.
No, Billy, I was kidding. What's the matter with you?
I sense something. A presence I haven't felt since... Well, hello again, Mr. St. Cloud! This is my colleague,
Billy Queasbury. I recognized your foul stench when I was brought on board.
No need for introductions, then.
I was under the impression this was to be a private viewing, Dr. Venture. You assured me there'd be no other collectors.
Oh, how is this leaving, St. Cloud? White, fetch the conductor cycle.
Fetch? What am I, your servant?
Just do it! Well, I've got a lot of exciting items to show you, so shall we away to the hangar?
St. Cloud, what a great villain, because he is like, who would be Billy Quizboy's archenemy? A guy who can buy all of the stuff Billy wants to buy for collectibles, but is not half as geeky as Billy is.
He sniped him on eBay.
Oh, God.
We are hitting the ceiling of the amount of voices that Jackson Public can do.
Yeah.
It's like, why is Dean doing why is Hank doing a comic book guy impression?
No, yeah.
It just sounds like that. I mean, it's one guy.
Yeah,
he can only do so many voices.
They got to save money somewhere. I like his St. Cloud one.
No, it's good.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, he's only one man, and they just had to fire Patrick Warburton for Christ's sake,
or just use him much more sparingly.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think the introduction of him to the show, though, in him and Quizboy, because it feels like it's a meta concept, because this whole show is about being super nerds to begin with, and it's written by super nerds, and now they have super nerds on the show combating each other with their super nerdery. Getting to some levels of meta, I feel like that's just.
Oh yeah,
They should have a podcast.
well, in season 2, Gary is recording a podcast. He was a podcaster before we were.
Oh God.
Also, I can't help but think of whenever they do these Star Wars references, infamously, I guess, back in season 2, they did so many that they banned themselves from doing it for season 3. So they're already back on their bullshit, basically. Back to the old me here in season 5.
I think it was the break between season 4 and 5 gave them the time to be like, I miss saying Star Wars lines. Yeah, me too. So
It's about time we get Star Wars references on TV.
so yes, Billy's line about I sense a presence I haven't felt since. That is what Darth Vader says when he senses that Obi-Wan is returned onto the Death Star in episode 4. And of course, St. Clouds, I recognize your foul stench the minute I came on board, is what Princess Leia says to Grand Moff Tarkin when she first meets him, also in Star Wars episode
I didn't
4.
know these things.
Yeah, no, I'm saying these are nerds referencing show written by super nerds. It's getting some layers of irony or meta-ness, I guess I should say there.
In this episode, they make important points about the level of geekiness that you can occupy. That that St. Cloud, he's as good as a rich dilettante can be, but he can't really memorize the stuff as accurately as some other people. Gary is really high up there, but perhaps because he spends a little too much time in the gym, he's not the best as Billy Quizboy is, as the ultimate geek who knows every possible geeky thing you could know. And that's why he is the true hero to St. Cloud's villainy of being the rich guy who buys every cool thing. Like his own Batmobile, specifically the Michael Keaton Batmobile.
See, when you're young, though, you aspire to be like Billy. But when you're old, you want to be like St. Cloud, just rich and don't have to do anything.
Yeah. No, and I love that he's specifically the son of a plastics manufacturer, which makes him like kind of the DuPont kids who Google them. There's a lot of evil DuPonts out there.
And do Billy and Pete still live in a trailer together?
Yes.
Okay.
They don't leave the trailer until season 6. Yeah, so St. Cloud, he's buying all the stuff. And once St. Cloud is there, I also love anytime St. Cloud's in a scene, Pete becomes a sidekick. He doesn't want to, but he's just instantly becomes a sidekick for the whole scene. And yeah, so then we go to the campus. Hatred is giving Dean the talk about how he doesn't need to be sad about Triana anymore and that it's time to move on. And especially I like his line about they're at a college when he's doing is like, there's a whole school. I mean, literally. Well, I mean, not literally, but.
Yeah, plenty of fish in the sea, but they're not literally fish, though.
Yes. Yeah. I like that Hatred's position definitely is the understanding but conservative dad who definitely doesn't like that Dean is becoming a goth, and he thinks it's a bad move for him, but he just wants to tell Dean like, look, Dean, I've been there too, but yeah, you gotta get back on the horse. I'll help you.
I just like seeing just the remnants of Doc Venture's old life. Like they have the Rusty Venture standee like when he was the boy adventurer.
And they pull it out of storage of like, hey, you guys remember Rusty Venture, right? And I think in 2013, people know him as much as a normal person on a college campus knows Johnny Quest, which is not at all, and they've never heard of it.
Yeah, they're never entirely clear about that, but the Rusty Venture TV show was very popular at one point, but it's probably not airing now at the time of this episode.
In Prom, there's a great joke about how their show got canceled. It had a bad time slot, and he's like, we were too smart for the room. But that is when Dean meets Thalia, which I wonder if it is a reference to Talia al Ghul, Batman's one of his many beloveds.
I assure you it is probably.
And Kate McKinnon, that's the voice of Talia. She's really great. She does a random assortment of voices in seasons 5 and 6. Then I guess she got busy with some other thing. I don't know.
Who knows what that could be?
I was gonna say Talia. Hey, I'm sorry. I mean the Billy Quiz Boy now. It's probably a reference actually that she's one of the 3 Greek graces. Because this whole with the Paimon project, Paimon's also like a big Greek, but it's a Greek reference.
You are the Billy Quiz Boy on this.
So not everything is a comic book reference then.
I want everything to be a comic book reference. Every time they get closer to making more Spider-Man references, like the Brown Widow became my favorite character in the series when they introduced him because he's just Spider-Man and they do Spider-Man jokes with him.
He's barely even different from Peter Parker's Spider-Man though. Like I know they make the joke about how his web shooter's on his ass or just above his ass or whatever. But like he's almost as straight up Peter Parker though.
Yeah, the joke with Brown Widow is that Peter Parker's a loser in his mid-20s as Spider-Man, but he can never age beyond that because then he'd either have to make changes in his life, or if he kept aging but was still Spider-Man and never got married, never got a steady job, gave up everything for Spider-Man, he would be the 38-year-old loser that he is, that the Brown Widow is in the show.
You know what? Like, after Kate McKinnon performed Hallelujah on SNL, that's the height of comedic potential. She should have just went back to voice acting, because like nothing is funnier than that sketch. Like, I'm rolling in the aisles.
Look, we all didn't know what to do in those days.
Right, really maudlin cold openings.
I know. But I also like that Thalia's character references the 2006 film The Farmer Astronaut.
Yeah.
Oh, I definitely looked that up because I had no clue what the fuck that was.
Yeah.
I need footnotes for some of this.
That I like that because it shows where her pop culture tastes are, that she's like, well, yeah, I remember like 6 years ago I watched the Billy Bob Thornton film Farmer Astronaut, and so that's what I'm going to reference here. And then I like how Dean's response is like, is there a movie where a guy scams money off of his brother who used to be a parasitic tumor?
At least Dean these days is very clear-eyed about what's going on. Again, that's an improvement for him.
It's funny, you know, he can see that JJ was the parasitic tumor for so many years, but now Doc is clearly the parasite on him.
I like that.
Yeah.
And yes, then comes in Martin, voiced by Aziz Ansari, which that was a cool thing back then. And in 2013, really cool to get him.
Cool, funny guy, right?
Yeah, cool, funny guy. Let's move on. Hey, but they also say that both characters were kind of underwritten, and they just left it up to the voice actors being great improvisational actors to find the characters in the room, and they did. I mean, Martin just is the character Aziz played on Parks and Rec. Like, he's just the younger version of Tom. And I think Kate McKinnon, she knew that type of like college girls, like, oh gee, guy, like, I like your kind of breathy weirdness in the character.
Yeah, you know, independent of other stuff, Aziz does a good job in this episode with Martin.
Definitely. Yeah, he does. He is a really good voice actor. And yeah, I said it before, but she's the exact type of girl he'd have a crush on next. And also that it shows he's not really heartbroken about Triana because he's a 17-year-old boy who instantly gets a boner for the next hot girl he meets. And I love his fantasies.
Yeah.
At his level as a virgin, he can only imagine, like, what if she were to put her hand on top of where my penis is?
I do like the escalation of the Lady and the Tramp joke that ends with her just placing her palm on his crotch.
Yes, yeah.
I do love the last one, the Star Wars one, the robot joins in on it.
Yes,
yeah.
The half-broken robot.
It's like, that confuses things even more for Dean. It's like, what does this mean?
I think those robots, are they meant to be a reference to Battlestar Galactica? They look like
I think they are, yes. Yeah. Here, see, we're being too much a dilettante. You have to have such pop culture literacy to truly enjoy Venture Brothers. It challenges you to such an extreme.
Why did it get canceled? I ask you again.
I know. In the book,
look, I've been stuck inside the last 9 months.
Yeah.
All right.
in the art book, they reference so many times. They're like, we know our show's impenetrable, okay? We know that, but we don't know how to make a different show.
I definitely feel sorry for anyone listening to this, even this podcast, and has not seen the show at all. Like, I'm so sorry. You don't know what's happening here. These are all just names being thrown around. What the hell is a Molotov cock tease, you know?
Well, I mean, Hulu is just $12.99 a month without ads. Just catch up now.
And when Dean comes out of his, being knocked unconscious from Frisbee golf, he thinks that she's complimenting him on his terrible teen goatee, but she's like, no, you're bleeding from your nose.
It's a lot of blood. I like it.
And then comes in another very loaded thing in this episode, intentionally so. We all know interns are very taken advantage of and heavily exploited in most businesses. But this makes them literal slaves to Doc Venture, and they really go there a lot of times with especially the green class.
Yeah, there's already like a Stanford prison experiment thing happening here.
Yeah, it's also that for sure.
They mentioned in the commentary they meant to do more with the slavery jokes. They just didn't have time for it, basically. So that was one of the things they got cut for density. But they mentioned they want to make even more of a point of it. Like, yeah, this is just slavery.
It's one of those like, boy, this is obviously it's a thorny subject. They're definitely not on the stance of slavery is good. So, but also the more they deal with it, it's like, God, Doc is such an asshole. Just
I mean, before they get eaten, I think the special class, they have the best job.
Yes.
Just serving Doc Venture.
Well, they are the house servants named Tom.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I wasn't sure how to put that one out there, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, these are the tropes they're dealing with.
They're not being exposed to radiation, is what I'm saying.
Oh, that too.
Yeah.
And I mean, too, on Doc's ways, like, well, yeah, there's the worker class, there's the science class, and then there's the ones who attend to me at all times. That's who I got to pick, too. I like in this scene that you get to see how everybody treats them differently. Like, Doc is giving them a speech like he's the CEO of a company, but he sucks at it. And so then he gives it to Sergeant Hatred, who's a military guy who just treats them all like troops. And then the next person who goes, it's Hank, who's just like, well, yeah, I'm going to sell to them. I love that. Magazines, both dirty and clean. Laundry, clean only.
I do love how quickly they try to run through these jokes that they're like, I picked you because you're all the best candidates. Like, I was in sports med.
Yeah.
I just gotta try to shove that in there.
I love too that Hatred speech is how he doesn't trust any of these guys. He's like, there's villains are gonna come every day and you gotta fight against them. Like it's really just about how he thinks 21 is there as a double agent and he has to be on guard at all times. And I mean too, this follows the classic. This does get back to the Johnny Quest roots in that it is a very sci-fi parable story of people in different green or orange or white outfits get assigned different class systems, and it's really about class and race, but through a sci-fi lens. Like, that is not exactly a Johnny Quest episode, but from 1960 sci-fi pulp stuff for sure.
Yeah, because again, like you mentioned, they kind of outgrew the whole Johnny Quest grown up thing by itself, but they still love that the failed promises of super science from the 60s.
We also get to see that Hank's idea is like, oh, well, I run the company store.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which uses company script.
Yeah, they get paid in Hank bucks.
I love that.
And they have to buy their own uniforms too.
That's how they get you, man. These interns they're not getting paid even.
Yeah, Rusty is built like a company town. It's like you live on the premises, you use the money we give you. Like it's real crooked.
I also like that Doc's big plan, in typical Doc fashion, instantly causes a giant accident that likely sets them back by weeks. He turns on what turns out to be a giant magnet, and it sucks all the metal and then explodes. And I also like that Dean is just up on stage waving at Thalia the entire time.
Yeah, he hasn't grown up that much.
And
that still feels like a very much old Dean thing. I'm like, oh, hey, girl who I think likes me.
Also, even seeing like tablets and smartphones in this made me go like, boy, the show has already been on for a long time. That they're only starting to have them now.
It started in the flip phone era, so we've come quite a way.
Yeah. It then cuts to Doc in his house with all of his Toms, Tommy and Tom. The lead Tommy is voiced by Wyatt Cenac, who he's a great voice actor. He was just getting started on The Daily Show at the time. I feel like I don't see him in stuff that much anymore. The last time I saw him in something was he was a guest on the friend of the show, Virgil Texas's podcast, Bad Faith, with Brianna Joygray. He was one of the guests on there. But he seems like a nice dude, and he does a great job in this episode.
Is he originally British, or is he just doing a good British accent?
Oh, no. Wyatt Cenac, he's from, I think New York, I think.
Okay.
He's really
he puts
good.
on a good accent here.
And yeah, so in between those scenes, that's when the Halloween special happened. So as they say when they were writing it, they were writing everything backwards. And as they're starting on the premiere, they're like, well, we're going to do in October a Halloween episode. And they realize, like, wait, this episode takes place in the fall into the winter. So Halloween happens during it. So it has to take place in the middle of this episode. They just kind of shrug like, all right, then I guess it does. But now so much has changed already. Like, I like, too, that Doc is a jerk to Martin when he sees that Martin is already a better scientist than Doc is and has partially built it. He then has to humiliate him in front of everybody, which involves smacking another guy in the face with, like, I guess a rock. And then that guy gets teleported away and phase shifted into, like, a state of walking death.
I like his fate, even though it's frankly horrifying, like cosmically horrifying.
Yeah.
Great sound effects to go with that later.
And again, like for all of his super science stuff, Dr. Venture does not have good computers. And so, like, Martin's like, what is this from? The Mayflower? Like, and later on, when he's playing Oregon Trail, it looks like it's an old, like, Apple II Mac or something he's on.
Doc only spends money on stupid things. He would never invest in his company on having a... What also, too, it wouldn't fit with... The Venture compound is crystallized in, like, 1973, I think. They don't... If they had anything newer than that... There's a great gag in an earlier episode, where he's trying to sell stuff to the military, and the Doc's like, I've seen all your old dad stuff, but thanks for the Fruitopia. I haven't had that in forever.
Yeah.
Like, you haven't even changed out the drinks in the vending machines.
God, I just love all the architecture in the show because I've been cooped up in my apartment for 8 months, and just like, look at the spacious living room.
Oh, yes.
And the glass walls with the beautiful view outside. It looks great. Good property these guys have.
Oh, man, the lounge they have by the pool, and you can see the pool through the window. I'm like, God, that is like a James Bond hideout kind of view. I didn't even think at the time of this recording, Sean Connery just passed away. Now, if we ever see Colonel Gentleman again, it'll be a sad reminder of how much time has passed. But yes, as the day ends with all the test kids, they then head outside to their stay in the Eden, and Hatred is watching over and then instantly pulls a gun on 21, and he just doesn't trust Gary. Like, the previous season, he was just threatened by Brock the entire time. He's like, I got a new face tattoo for you, and all you talk about is Brock. And now he feels inferior to Gary, or threatened in general.
I forgot he had the H on his face.
Yes.
And now he's got the V on his face.
Well, first it was Sergeant Vatrid, then he got everything else removed except for the D because that was too tender an area.
Oh, yes.
So now he's Sergeant VD, of course.
That's, oh, God, I forgot that joke. That's... His arc this season also is that he grows breasts. That's another thing that happens to Hatred. I'll spoil this one. It turns out it's just a side effect of the drugs he's taking to fight his urges.
No.
And then basically just between seasons 5 and 6, they get removed and no one comments on it again. They're just like, look, this was his boob season and he won't have boobs next season. That's all. There's a danger of getting into transphobic jokes with giving Hatred boobs too, which I feel like they mostly avoided.
Didn't they get into it with Hunter Gatherers?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Before this?
Yeah, that was like season 3. Yeah.
Yeah. When Hunter Gatherers transitions, it is not treated very respectfully. It is more of a joke. But then also afterwards, it revealed that he was doing it as a trick to go undercover. But then they also occasionally give him lines of like that he really misses having boobs and he misses being a woman. I don't know.
Whenever they have flashbacks, they always he actually takes like a really feminine appearance, like a cheerleader or something like that.
That's true, yeah.
So I think there's sort of like a half joke that he wants to be a woman, but he does kind of want to be a woman, basically.
Yeah. Though, I mean, again, this is a show written by cis heterosexual white dudes in the aughts who, but we all had blind spots back then to that, and I think they've learned. They've learned since. But yes, then we cut to the Monarch and Dr. Mrs. the Monarch, and they're having some of their sexy role-playing fun. I liked how in the end of prom, it was revealed that, like, yeah, we're just swingers. We're freaky folks. Like, and this is just one of their sex games. And I got the clip.
Where are you, blood of my blood? Come to King's Landing and take your rightful seat on my iron throne.
Go for it.
Where the are you, Rocky?
You said you were gonna be Drago.
Drogo! Khal Drogo! You're supposed to be my Khaleesi! Wait, did you think I'm an Ivan Drago?
Well, obviously.
Why would I... What the hell is sexy about that?
What the hell is it called, Drogo?
Not a what, a who. From Game of Thrones.
Well, I have never seen that stupid thing.
It is not stupid. It's spectacular. And yes, you have. We used to watch it together every week.
No, honey. You used to watch that with 21.
You're a bum, Rock.
Not now, Tim Tom.
Get it. It's ruined now.
Oh, baby, I know you miss him, but...
How dare you miss him? I don't miss henchmen. I'm the monarch.
Okay. Touchy subject. I'm sorry.
And he will, too, be back.
I love all of that. First off, that Mrs. the Monarch is like, you know what? I guess you want me to be Rocky and you to be Ivan Drago, and we're gonna fuck. I guess let's do it.
You know, it was a simpler time in 2019 when within the span of 6 months, both Game of Thrones and Star Wars obliterated their reputations and no one had to talk about them ever again. I think as of this recording, people are only talking about Star Wars again because of The Mandalorian.
That's
That's
right,
it.
Yeah.
No one else is going to talk about it ever again. It's fine.
I do love how the Muppets get involved with their sexual thrills, I guess.
He comes in as a Mickey.
After this clip, too, the other one comes in as
Clever Lang. Clever Lang,
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess her plan was, and it probably often happens, that the two of them are viewers of their sexual adventures and are, well, I hope they don't participate too much. I don't think the Monarch would want physical participation from Kevin and Tim Tom. I hate the Muppets. They suck. Like they're no, and I think you're supposed to hate them.
I agree, but when he comes in and says you're a bum rock, doesn't make me laugh every time. Though.
That is funny, yeah. But
She looks good as Ivan Drago. I will say that.
No, she's Rocky. She's Rocky.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. He's Ivan Drago, but not really Drogo.
Yeah. I think I haven't rewatched that episode, but I believe in season 5, there's a scene where the Monarch just talks to Kevin and Tim Tom and goes like, I could fucking murder you right now. Like, you are nothing to me.
Yeah, because like all throughout their strained relationship with them, they always act like they're so murderous and badass, whatever. So yeah, he has that scene where just like, I could fucking murder you. Like, shut the fuck up, and they're rightfully scared.
He puts them in their place.
After that, really.
Yeah, and that whole scene is just pulled from real life of Jackson Public was really enjoying Game of Thrones and liked it, and Doc Hammer thought it was stupid and wouldn't watch it. And I want to hear them talk about it now, because I have a feeling Doc Hammer is going to be like, I was right. You wasted your time on Game of Thrones.
I mean, like it or not, now we're all free.
Yeah, we are all free, yeah.
Well, one thing I remember sticking out about that when I first watched all those years ago was they don't usually have that sort of current reference on there.
Yeah.
Like Bob correctly pointed out earlier, almost all the references are this obscure shit from a long time ago. So I remember even like watching this, 7 years ago or whatever, seeing this dropped, I'm like, well, they don't normally, like, that's weirdly relevant,
Yeah. When it was new, I remember going like, I at the time I wasn't watching Game of Thrones, so I didn't get these references. And now I do, and I laugh at them in a funnier way. There's like, oh yeah, Khaleesi, she's gonna be on the Iron Throne. I think not. But they,
I'm glad I don't know any of this.
I'm dangerously close to giving away Game of Thrones spoilers.
That's okay. When that episode ended, every podcaster was obligated to podcast about it.
Yeah.
And we're still on, there's a manhunt for us right now because we never podcasted about it.
I know. I haven't even watched it myself. I just picked up so much, that osmosis kind of thing.
Terrible ending, really. If I could point someone to a good video about why it was a terrible finale, Lindsay Ellis's video says it is better than I could. So give that a watch. But yeah, I also like that Monarch he has been broken up with, but he won't admit it. And I love that she's like, no, you used to watch with him, but he still thinks of 21 as beneath him, is just like this dumb henchman, which he was for the first 3 years of the show. Then it cuts back to the compound, and Doc is being given one of his many Doc tales. And
Doc tales.
I looked up on the wiki his Doc tales. They're all disgusting. You wouldn't want to drink any of them. This one, the only one on there on the wiki that uses grenadine, is a ruddy bottom. So I'm guessing that's what is being made.
Grenadine is just like syrup and like pomegranate juice together. So it's just like he just drinks like pure syrup with whatever else they want to add to it.
A tiny splash of liquor on top of it.
I didn't notice this until marathoning it just this week. That's like a running joke of like he has terrible tasting cocktails. I don't know if you remember from looking at that list, Henry, but one of them involves ketchup.
Yes.
And like grenadine or some shit. Like it sounds disgusting.
Well, another has Kool-Aid mixed in it. Like he's every time he makes it. This is what they talk about a lot in Doc's character. In so many ways, I love how much Hammer and Public understand every person in their world and create so much backstory for them. And one of them for Doc is the Doc thinks he is a total ladies man who is also like, I'm the ultimate bachelor. I can make a million awesome cocktails just like James Bond. And then when you explore it, it's like, these are disgusting. No one likes these. They only fit your weird, fucked up taste, Doc. And Doc is being a huge asshole to the entire green class, ordering him around, even as they beg for their lives. He's like, yeah, whatever, get out of here. I don't care.
We get hints of things that are happening back at the Eden in the scene.
I love the silence of like, come now, green class. We must go. But Doc
Let's go
doesn't
to
care.
the Eden.
Eden. Then we get a bit of the phase-shifting ghost boy that Hatred thinks is a ghost meant to haunt him. I would assume for either a person he murdered or perhaps some pedophilic urges of his in the past.
Sure.
I don't know. But it's also a very Venture Brothers thing for Hatred to have this like Dickensian type of speech. And then Doc just calls him Ebenezer Scrooge just to be like straight up like, I get what you're quoting. Shut up. And also the Doc, when faced with this guy stuck in a wall, he'd rather leave him in that state if he can't get what he wants. He's like, so does it work or what?
He just wants that data.
And so then it's the next morning. Dean is talking about what happened in the Halloween episode, which is when he finds out that he is a clone, which fucks him up for the rest of the season. And as he's hanging out with Thalia, I like the Doc, the second he sees her, he's like, you're not good enough for my son. Get out of here.
Like, what is she, the white class?
She's white class.
They're not allowed in the kitchen. Like, it's not even like Stanford Prison Experiment. He has decided upon like the caste system already.
Yes. No, it's fully a plantation. Like, this is a southern plantation with slaves. And he's fine with it. But yes, as Dean and her are talking about what they did on their Halloween, that's when she reveals that not all is right with the students.
Now I don't even know who I am. I can't even tell my brother. He'd be devastated. It's like I'm different from everyone else, and I'm just completely alone. Anyway, I'm sorry to go on like this. How was your Halloween?
It's okay, Dean. You know, we all feel like that sometimes. I feel that way all the time, and I'm perfectly normal. Well, I was perfectly normal.
No. Only green class has house privileges. White class. Dean, what did I tell you about fraternizing with the help?
Talia, show him your problem.
Okay, I'm gonna show you. This seems like it's gonna be sexual. It's not. This is it. But that's not it. There's another one on the other side. So that's what's going on with me.
I saw a guy on the Learning Channel with that. I even had something like that myself. So, do they itch or something? Do you need a balm or a liniment? Perhaps a salve?
Okay, no. See, I just grew these. I didn't have these yesterday. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Okay, well, I'll look into that. In the meanwhile, I want you on construction. Put those new hands to some use, huh? Let's make some lemonade with these lemons.
I'll see you around.
Oh, I don't think so, Dean.
Oh God, yeah.
Even sees Dean making a connection with a cute girl, and he's like, no, I don't think so.
God, yeah, and good name drop of the Learning Channel, which in the 21st century it became more about freaks.
Oh yes,
than learning.
But Doc would still call it the Learning Channel, not TLC.
You know, the more I watch this, the more you're right that like this is, even for him, this is very morally repugnant. Like he's done some pretty awful things throughout the show, but this is down there. He's
throwing away a lot of lives.
Yes.
Very nonchalantly.
I mean, they're not people to him. Like that's very clear on Doc's behalf.
He's very aware of the problems the irradiation is causing.
Yeah, he's wearing his suit all the time when he's in there. His watch showed him how much radiation there was in a previous scene, and his reaction was like, well, get back to work, guys.
Oh, I forgot to mention that suit he wears, I'm pretty sure is the Dr. No suit from the James Bond movie.
Yeah, I think you are right. I think you're right. I think it's very intentional. The art book tells you so many things like, oh yeah, this is from this movie, that's from that movie. I think you're very right. It's the Dr. No suit he's wearing. It reminds me too of the one of my favorite early Venture Brothers jokes is when in season 1 in outer space he's wearing a spacesuit. He's like, I need to pee, and then he just pisses himself in the spacesuit, going like, well, yeah, it's a spacesuit. And they're like, no, there's no way to get that out of there. And he's just sloshing around in his own urine the rest of the day. Horrifying. And I also love the line of like, it seems like it's going to be sexual. It's not like that.
Yeah, that's a great performance right there. Like the breathy voice.
Yeah.
When you see how she's drawn, it's like it can't avoid being sexual.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Now the, again, horny artists at work again. And I also love that Doc goes through all the things like a balm, a liniment, perhaps a salve. I'm surprised he didn't say unguent. That's the one of those words he didn't say.
You know, that is the funniest ointment style word. I would have thrown it in there.
Unguent.
That's why you need a writer's room. You know, that's how you get those kind of.
It's true.
Get things in there.
We need a second pass.
In that NPR interview, they were very clear of like the reason they they wouldn't want to do a writer's room is because even great writers, if they pitched anything, they'd be like, do you even know these characters? We only have them in our heads.
Sergeant Hatred would never say that.
So then we cut to St. Cloud's lair, which in the design book they mentioned they wanted to look like a mix between a Jabba's palace on Tatooine and the Apple Store.
He mentions he had the glass flown in from the Apple Store.
That's right. Yeah, and also he says that they are meeting in the sunken lounge from Highlander. And I looked it up. That is from the trophy room in Highlander. But because they show that St. Cloud is, he's a shallow mega fan who can just buy all these things. He says Highlander's 1983 when Highlander's actually 1986.
Oh, that was on purpose. And I really want one of these circular couches, despite how just a waste of space they are.
Yeah.
They're just so attractive.
It's to show off that you have like a living room that's as big as most people's backyards.
So you could have stopped at living room for me, and I'd be impressed.
Oh, yes. Yeah. This is a living room / workspace. Studio. Yeah.
And kitchen.
And yeah, we get to see the two guild guys return. Watch and Clock, I think they are. No,
Watch and Ward.
Watch and Ward, thank you. But what I love about them is that they're just drawn to look like Jackson Public and Doc Hammer. Like they're doing voices, but their faces are drawn to look like them, to the point that Doc Hammer's character, you can see his blonde hair poking out from the sides of his mask because it's just so voluminous.
This is where I have to agree with Bob a little bit what you said earlier, because they also did that with Billy Quizboy and Pete White, although they voiced the opposite person and they added some stuff. But yeah, like that's the same idea there too. Like they kind of resemble who their real selves. I mean, physically too.
When I listened to them on the commentary talking about what a big deal it was for them to kill off 24, they said it's because they pretty much write scenes of revolving duos of characters talking to each other. And when you kill off one member of the duo, then you can't do those scenes anymore. And that's why I was like, boy, everyone kind of is that. And that's definitely with Watch and Ward. But I have a little bit of their talk with St. Cloud as he joins the guild. And I love their replies to him of, these guys are always like passive aggressive and jerky to people, but this guy's paying them so much money that they kind of are forced to be nice.
We'll issue your permanent one once you've decided on a villain name.
Augustus St. Cloud.
Going with the real name then. Very Lex Luthor of you.
St. Cloud. So what are you, like a weather guy? What are your powers?
I have an inordinate amount of money.
All right, well, let's talk arches. We've got a number of candidates we think would be
I will
just...
only arch master Billy Quizboy.
See, new members don't get to pick their own arch in the first year, so...
Oh, yeah, it's all covered in the heaven.
Gentlemen, I've only deigned to join your organization for one reason, and one reason only. To make my decades-old rivalry with the Quizboy official. A long time ago, he stole something from me, you see. Something quite valuable, and I'm determined to use my considerable means to make him suffer for it, no matter what the cost.
Wow. Well, you've certainly got the villain patter down.
Right, look, goosebumps.
Unfortunately, rules are rules,
Oh,
and...
boo, what do we have here? Did one of you drop this?
Welcome to the Guild of Calamitous Intent.
Yeah, money definitely talks.
Yeah.
No matter what.
I love it. You like a weather guy or something?
I did appreciate him going with his original name. Like a Lex Luthor.
That's great. Very, very Lex Luthor of you is such a great line, too.
I do kind of miss, we're talking about them being those duos things. I do kind of miss those scenes they used to have in the old guild base, because it was straight up, I'm pretty sure, they're like taking from like their conversation that day or something. So they'd be like, it's like, I thought you were taking a piss. Like, what? I just went. What? You were only gone for like 5 seconds. What, you piss in the corner? Like, just completely like non sequitur conversations.
Yeah. Those two guys, they're such a constant, and they just grow as the seasons go on. I also love the guild is just a constant, rewarding thing to go back to, of just the bureaucracy of comic book supervillains. Like to explain why these fights never end in death or anything too bad, and why it's just a revolving door of adventures. Every time you learn a guild rule, you're like, oh, well, this is why comic book stories of superheroes fighting always happen this way, because the guild rules say you have to do it that way. And the St. Cloud just buying his way into it is perfect, because that if you got enough money, you can just buy whatever you want. That is a superpower.
Yeah, I can say I do like that he identifies his superpower as money, because that's absolutely what his and a lot of superhero powers basically. Batman's superpower is basically money to some degree.
Yeah, I mean he has the independent wealth to work out all the time and learn kung fu. So it's still money, and it's willpower as well. It's not just money. Iron Man was just money. He was like, well, I have the money to build a giant suit and do it. But no, I guess he's got the science to build it. Fine, Iron Man fans.
You know, this current state just proves that our regular billionaires are no Iron Men because they're not saving the world.
I know.
They're busy finding a way to get the fuck out of here into Mars.
And if they can even pull that one off. They want to build a Gargantua 2. Like, that's one thing. JJ builds Gargantua 2, but if it was real life, he'd say, like, and of course, we're not listening to those age of consent laws that the planet Earth has. Or some other libertarian fantasies.
That's a good point, actually, about the Guardians 2 also, is that I don't really remember what the purpose of it was. Like, was there actually any stated reason why he's doing it other than to, like, showcase his metaphorical dick to people kind of thing?
I mean, yeah, it's JJ's whole thing is he'll do the thing Doc failed to do, which is continue his father's legacy. And so by building a bigger and better Gargantua 2, he's proven he can do that, which why it really rubs it in for old Doc as the season goes on. And his brother becomes even worse than his dad as a force that destroys his life or haunts him at all times. Then it goes back to the next day of them working on stuff. Doc checks in. The oranges are not letting him in, and Doc should really be worried when they're listening to Martin much more than they are listening to him. But Doc doesn't care as long as they're building stuff. And same with once he meets with Billy, and Billy's like, close that door. But because this is a sci-fi parody world, radiation only causes mutations, not cancer.
Yeah, no one is just like dying of leukemia or whatever.
And I also like that Doc, when he's told that they're turning into Ben Grimms and telepaths, that he's like, then it's working. All right. Yeah.
And he only cares about if it gets done, without him having to do anything.
And I was shocked, even on Hulu, they did not censor Hatred's voluptuous breasts.
That's true, yeah.
You see the full nipples there. And I kept the Hulu version with the bleeps because I honestly think it's funnier with bleeps than with we've talked about.
Yeah,
this
bleeps
before.
are funny.
Yeah.
I meant that. I could sound old when saying that, but it's true.
You kids with your uncensored versions up front.
We paid $10 to watch Cartman swear 20 odd years ago.
So then it comes to the next night as Monarch pops in on 21. 21 is being very clear to him that he is not a henchman anymore and they moved on. But Monarch is still in very deep denial, which is a good little comedy scene there. I like, too, that he's like, I killed one of the Venture brothers. Like, nah, it's just some student. Like, oh, man.
Well, just got some intern. No one cares.
The pairing works because, again, it is Jackson Public talking to Doc Hammer, and then when Hatred is talking to 21, it's the same thing. Just they can't escape it. They can't escape it.
And I also, I do, it is probably culturally insensitive, but I did like that Hatred said, I'm going to put it right through that bindi on your head, which it is like, what is that headpiece on the Monarch that holds his, I guess it's like a top part of his hat that holds his cowl into place and it like glues it down. I guess that's what it is, but
he almost never takes it off too. Like, I think he takes off for the first time in like season 6 or something.
There's a gag in a flashback where when he reveals his eyebrows to Dr. Girlfriend at the time, she's like, oh, whoa, all right. You're really taking this far with your whole theming, butterfly theme. So yeah, then as Monarch walks away, he does ask him like, who is the true heir to the throne and to the Iron Throne, and 21's like, he says it's Daenerys Targaryen, which shows what you know. That's what 21 and Monarch thought back then. But they'd learn different as time went on. Which of course,
I actually don't know the real answer to that. Despite all my osmosis.
You know what? I can't spoil it.
Well, I mean, it's up to George R. R. Martin to decide. Those books aren't done yet. Surely he's writing them.
Yeah.
I'm sure he has pages, of course.
And I mean, he's only had free time this whole year to finish writing that book. I'm sure he will. I always love there's interviews where Martin goes like, quit telling me you think I'm going to die any day now. That doesn't make me want to write faster. And after that scene ends, it then goes to the Hank Coe shop as Hank's trying to sell to his captive audience. I like that Dermot is working and he's the seamstress, I guess you'd say. And meanwhile, Hatred, for just one scene, takes on the role of like a sitcom short order chef.
Yeah, I mean, it is a long walk to a Soylent Green parody, and they're
Very
just
long,
like
yeah.
they're paving the road to it right now in this scene.
I did get a screenshot of the menu, and I won't read off every last one of them, but one of the ones I like is bread balls. We begin by hand rolling white bread into little balls and then end by serving you them.
That's great. All that food is what kids make with snacks. It's
Yeah, I've
plain
done that.
food snacks. Totally. Oh, that's perfect because this is just a boys' clubhouse is all it is. And so they don't know how to make actual food. But I just love Hatred's design and just like he's got his spatula there. He's like, hey, you boys want something? Like, it's so funny. And then also he's just like, kids today, 1 week they're a vegetarian. Like but yes, that is when he finds out. He heads outside to check on the green who just walked away. And that is when the orange reveals that they have turned into reptilian Supermen. And he bites his head off and eats him, and that's when we get this this quick little clip.
God! Student Green is made. We gotta stop him somehow. We gotta tell Doc it's people. Student Green is made out of people.
That's Hatred just becomes Charlton Heston.
You know what? I mean, that joke is about, let's say, at least 10 years past its due date or expiration date. But because Sergeant Hatred is a Charlton Heston voiced character, in terms of the impression, I will give them permission to do that. Just once.
I was going to say, how many people have actually seen the movie versus have seen some reference to it? It's got to be like 1 to 1,000,000 or something.
I've still not seen the full film. I really should.
No, I mean, like, the SNL sketch with Phil Hartman is, like, the only one you need to watch.
He does. God. He's
Soylent cow pies are people.
Also, the way they did it in this episode, on the commentary they mentioned that there's a little wipe in between when he says made out of people and then he gets carried off, and that was because he watched that on YouTube and not the actual original movie where they don't have a wipe. So he's like, the wipe is there because he thought that was the thing, but that he actually just caught that on YouTube. He's like, he goes, it's fine. You know?
Somebody had like iMovie and made their own cut.
Yeah, somebody on YouTube cut together just him screaming the two scenes together and took out the part that was in the middle. That's just so funny that the guys who get everything right, that he's like, you know what, I'm not watching the whole Soylent Green movie again. I'll just pull it up on YouTube. I know the scene. That's a difference between the two approaches of the writers, because Public definitely had it memorized and was like, I'll just pull up the YouTube video. Meanwhile, later in the episode, Billy Quizboy will directly bring up an episode of Star Trek, and Doc Hammer says, like, I watched that full episode of Star Trek and then multiple more episodes of Star Trek while writing this just so I'd get it right. But yes, then the second half of the episode begins the same way the first half began for Doc, which is getting a call from JJ as he finds out that he actually needs to finish it tomorrow. And I like that JJ's like, well, there's no time in space. The woman serving him the drinks too, that space flight attendant, is obviously a 2001 Space Odyssey reference too. Yeah. Though, I mean, I say obviously, I didn't recognize it until reading the old art book as well.
It's from the first part of the movie that no one remembers.
Yeah. People only remember Hal and like the last 10 minutes of the monolith parts.
And it's a long movie too. That's a lot of movie we all forget.
Yeah. I guess as we're mentioning 2001, I say the thing we always say: you haven't seen 2001 until you see it in a theater. And that's a sad thing to say at this moment right now. And someday, if you get to see 2001 in a theater again in the future, do that. And so as he's starting to go into overdrive, he knows Doc has lost his time. It then cuts to Hatred being kept captive. I like that he says, like, Doc isn't the quickest splinter in the race. Like, I guess it's that he's stupid, but he also doesn't want to realize that there's clearly a society living on his compound.
He's ignoring some massive problem just because he's, I want to say he's focused, but he does want to show up his brother.
Yes,
you know?
Yeah, that's true.
I like how Hatred recognizes, like, it sounds very cynical, but it's very correct to say, like, I'm hoping he cares enough about the ratio to rescue us for it. Like, he knows exactly where that motivation's at.
Yeah, he knows that's the only way it'll happen. Doc thinking to himself, oh, my friend Hatred is missing. He doesn't even notice Hatred's missing. He's like, yeah, guys, get to work. But as Hatred is strung up, that is when he learns the legend of the Lee Hun Tuk.
I'm just hoping he cares enough about that ray shield to rescue us for it? I mean, if there even is a ray shield.
The ray shield was completed long ago. You know that Martin plans on using it to turn all of humanity into a child of Palamon. The guy's gone insane. But there's a story among our people that there will come a savior, the Lee Hun Took. He, and only he, will lead the children of Palamon to peace.
Now, you guys move fast. What, have you been here 3 months and you already got legends of saviors?
You're talking about a bunch of geeks from State University. You mutate that kind of outcast, and it gets all Sci-Fi Channel original feature real quick.
You, House Tom, it's your time.
No! Sergeant, it has been an honor.
Not Tommy, no!
Don't cry for me. Tell my story.
It's a madhouse! The madhouse!
Forgot we got Planet of the Apes in there too.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, a second Heston. Yeah.
God.
That's great.
They can't have done that before. Were they waiting for this payoff?
I think so.
Okay.
I think that's the first madhouse they've set in the show. But him screaming, he's not getting blasted with a water hose, though.
We need like an Omega Man quote, but I can't think of one.
Boy, no, I can't either. Other than when I try to, I just think of the scenes from the Simpsons parody of it. I don't think of the movie itself.
Were you able to figure? Were either of you actually have any idea what Leon Took is from? Because I have some theories, but I couldn't go with anything definitive.
Honestly, I came up empty on that. There's nothing in the book. There's nothing on the wikis, and I can't place it myself either.
Is it supposed to sound like Ewok like language or something like that? Because
definitely does sound like that. Yeah.
So the best I got, and this is not very good, is there's a random theory on Reddit, like a really random Reddit post from like 5 years ago, that theorizes that Leon Took is just 3 nerd references put together. So Lee as in like Stanley or something. Han is kind of like Han Solo, then Took as in Peregrine Took. There's a lot of Lord of the Rings references going on later.
I like that.
Complete shot in the dark. I wouldn't take that as fact in any way, shape, or form, but
I like that. I like that it would be Stanley, Han Solo, and Peregrine Took. A fool of a Took. And I mean, we know later that like these guys are mega Tolkien heads as well.
Yeah.
I also like Sci-Fi Channel original feature real quick. That's a good line.
And it was captioned correctly as SYFY when I was watching.
Oh, that's good. That's they spent all that money on that logo. You'd hope people at least respond to it and continue it on.
What does it stand for? It doesn't matter.
But yes, then we cut another great scene of Dean on a date in his apartment with Thalia. And you can see that he has like a romantic comedy idea of what this is what like a picnic indoors looks like. I've got the cheese and the soda and the blanket all laid out. But yeah, Thalia tries to convince Dean to help her.
Just come be with me in Eden and challenge Martin for leadership.
How did you do that? You talked to my brain.
You can do it too. Just try and think your words into my brain.
She's gonna kiss me. I used to want to kiss the girl gremlin with the lipstick. Talia's taller and has boobies.
No, okay. Just concentrate.
Triana had boobs. I wonder if all boobs are soft, or are some super extra soft.
Dean, what you're not doing is concentrating. You cannot let your mind wander.
Do I just touch them, or should I ask? I really hope they haven't gotten all mutated. But what if they drip acid now?
All right, never mind. Let's just talk regular.
What if they drip acid? The female gremlin, you got to say, real babe.
Yeah.
Confusing thoughts about her.
I love that reference because it shows Dean's age. The first time he saw something that confused him with sexual feelings, it was seeing the girl gremlin.
Safe for work, she does have breasts.
Oh, okay.
In these official shots of her, so.
I mean, also too, I love a joke about if you could read the mind of a teen boy.
It's terrifying.
Yes, yeah.
All this boob speculation.
They're saying in the commentary, this is kind of like what I think it was Hammer said. It was what he used to think when he was, in high school or whatever, right? Like you're just kind of curious of what are boobs even like how do they work? That's how he was describing it, just a curiosity almost of what is that like?
Yeah, the very idea of touching a breast is confusing to him. He's like that. Anything beyond that is impossible for him to think of. But touching a boob is like, well, what if it's like hers, or is this what a boob's like? I also like that Thalia later on you can see that her plan is to become the queen. If she makes him king, then she's the queen. It is a bit of a Lady Macbeth kind of thing with her, I think. But that's her only real option. It's also seems to be a very sexist society that they built in the Eden.
I think so.
I will say the joke on here is on Dean, but if someone would read my mind, it wouldn't be that kind of stuff necessarily, but it'd be all over the place and messy. Like I don't have a consistent monologue, Like my thoughts are crazy like that too.
How do you focus into projecting one thought at one thing? Yeah. Then it cuts to the Monarch and Dr. Mrs. the Monarch talking over their plans. Like, Monarch wants to build his own army. When you know that what the wife is going to do at the end of this, you see her plan obvious from the beginning. She's like, no, I'm looking into how to solve it. I'm not trying to help you get a race of supermen.
Super-men.
Oh, yeah, that's great. I also love, too, that Monarch goes like, we must match his game with much more game. I think, too, you see a major joke in this episode is that Monarch and Doc are the same guy, basically. And it shows that Monarch is only successful to the degree he is because he has a hyper-skilled partner doing everything for him.
Yeah, and I guess presumably fewer vices than Rusty, right?
Fewer.
He's not a pill popper.
Well, I think, too, that Dr. Girlfriend, she focuses his vices into helpful places instead of it going all over the place.
Yeah, like in the previous season when the Monarch lost the arching rights to Dr. Venture, he became much less harmless and much more murder everything in his path kind of thing.
Very much so,
Which goes to show that he could be a more not necessarily comp is not quite the right word, but a lethal villain. But then it's not really necessarily healthy for him to be that way.
Yeah. Then in the next scene, they have a Martin Luther reference of the Eden dwellers have posted up their theses, which of course, when teen boys hear that word, they're going to make that into a poop joke. Then we get to see why 21 and Billy Quizboy never share scenes together is because they're the same person in this brief bit that I really do like.
This is nuts. Like, half of it is written in Klingon, and the rest is Sindarin.
Actually, that's Quenya, High Elven. Very similar to Sindarin.
Yeah, I left my English to Geek dictionary in my room.
Lord of the Rings!
So what do they want? Higher pay?
They want, and I quote, the sun to rise on the children of Palamon with rays of global dominion.
That's not happening. Let's cut these chains and get my ray shield.
Russ, that facility is a fully contaminated mutant incubator. We can't go in there unless we decon. And that's not going to be easy.
My brother is going to be here in 24 hours. All my houseboys and hatred have disappeared, and I'm left with the B team.
B-Team? All right, listen up. As Newsfix commander, I'm taking over this mission.
This also shows what happens when Doc doesn't have Brock or even hatred. He needs some strong man to be like, all right, I'll do it then. And in this case, it ends up being 21.
I want to apologize again for being Billy Quizboy. I'm Billy Quizboy himself, but Martin Luther posted those theses in 1517, not 1590.
Damn it.
Whoa, wow. Man, I did not know that. I didn't check that one because I was too busy looking up Elvish tongues from Tolkien.
Yeah,
works.
no, I looked that up too, and I'm as big a nerd as I am. I know nothing about that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, okay.
Anytime there's a mistake, it's intentional, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's right. Oh, totally.
No, I mean, those Elvish tongues like that is, if you know the difference between Quenya and Sindarin of the two types of Elvish languages, and there's more than two, but if you know that, you are the biggest geek. Like, that is the next level of it.
All of my geekery is just honed towards animation and video games.
Yeah. I think that's paid off for us.
These guys were not lucky enough to grow up with the internet. That's why.
Yeah.
Just like, I guess this Lord of the Rings will serve me well over the next 10 years.
I mean, if I couldn't fall down Wikipedia rabbit holes, then I guess I would have the time to study every tongue in that Tolkien created, from Quenya to Sindarin to even Uruk-hai. Whatever.
Is Urdu a real language?
That's a real one.
Okay.
I was saying,
or one of the sequels to Myst. I can't.
Yeah, see, that one sounded familiar.
Man, all right. You know what? I gotta look up the evil tongue of Mount Doom.
Well, also, I would say it's not necessarily wrong, but Martin Luther also posted 95 theses, it's not 94. But I don't know if that's necessarily they're just referencing it or trying to direct a thing or not there. Wasn't Tolkien like more of a linguist or something? Wasn't that a thing?
He wrote books to let him make up languages.
Yeah.
That's really what.
The stories were just incidental. It's just like, I want to write poetry and make up languages, and I guess these little guys can run around and fight with rings or something. I don't know.
Okay, Tengwar. That is the black speech of Sauron.
Sounds problematic.
That's the hey, look. He's what, a rich white guy who grew up in the 1900s? He wouldn't have any racial.
Speak
problems.
Elvish.
Obviously, the elves are the ultimate person that they are. Ageless and beautiful and all white.
Yes,
they're perfect. All right. So anyway, they all make a plan together. They're assigned jobs, which again pairs them all off into groups of two so they can have funny scenes together. Then it turns into a Roots parody as Hatred is being whipped so he can get rid of his slave name.
Yeah, I thought, God, I was just thinking about this. Like, Roots happened just like, I think it was like 83 or early 80s. It like happened just as we were being born into this world, at least Henry and I. And it was like the most viewed thing ever outside of like the finale of MASH. So this like the Kunta Kinte kind of scene was just like parody to hell and back. In some semi-tasteless ways.
Sure, yeah.
I was gonna say I have my notes up on it. It's 1977.
Shit. Okay, so
Wow.
late 70s then. Damn.
Man, we were just out of the generation that would have watched it in school or whatever. We missed out on it. I only seen scenes as references and stuff, or like the I love the VH1 version of remembering it.
Well, it's like the Soylent Green thing too. This is a reference that almost certainly you've seen a reference to and not actually seen the movie itself.
Yeah,
if you're born within the last 30 years, I guess. Or 40 years
when I say I should watch it, I really mean I should read the book that Alex Haley wrote,
or the Wikipedia summary of, or just watch, LeVar Burton have fun.
LeVar Burton, just watch reading. We're watching Reading Rainbow's the same thing, right? Yeah. No.
Close enough.
I also like that he challenges him with "Eat me." Hey, don't tempt me, delicious. That's a good. And then you get to see the Talia's just dragging Dean into the challenge. That's really great, and that's where he gets his mind read again, and he's just worried like, "Will I poop myself?" Like these are teen things too. Of like, if I'm gonna have to get in a fight, I might poop myself.
He has, like any teen, no control over his body.
I do like Martin's delivery on some of his lines too, where he's trying to be like grandiose, but then also turns into a college kid.
Yeah,
like we're gonna straight up eat you, son. No lies.
Yeah, he's trying to pretend to be a tough guy with terms he learned on the internet. So then they each choose a second. Dean takes on Hatred. That's where you find out Hatred's birth name is Courtney, which they say on the commentary it's because, like, yeah, he's old enough to, he has an old person's name, which is a name that's only a feminine name these days.
Like Leslie.
I guess that is about feminizing him in a way, though, too. The continual feminizing of him this season with his growing breasts and then revealing his name is Courtney.
I guess maybe it's just because I've known of people who were named Courtney who were males or dudes, but yeah, I didn't think that was that effeminate a name. I guess I understood what they were trying to do with the scene, I guess, but I knew NFL players who were named Courtney, whatever.
Oh, really?
So
Wow.
I was like, okay, I guess.
I assumed it was true. This is the first time I've heard of a man named Courtney this episode.
Well, yeah, I don't think I've known a Courtney in my life. I remember that Ash from Evil Dead is Ashley, which is like, it can be a man's name.
Yeah.
I have known a Hillary in my life who is a man. I have known a Hillary or two. But yeah, so that scene ends with the challenge. It then cuts to Doc is passed out while pretending to work hard, which I love that, and just playing Oregon Trail. And I love it's like, I was just resting my eyes. What are you, my dad? Had too much Chinese buffet and drifted off watching Murder, She Wrote? He's got to watch his Jessicas. Like that is so funny, but it also is just Jackson Public and Doc Hammer pitching jokes to one another in a room as two characters. And it also works so too because the third person is a different voice actor. And so it's three different voices talking to each other. And his simulations are just playing Oregon Trail, which is not...
Because he goes like, oh, the simulations have gone badly. Like, oh, yeah, they all died in Oregon Trail.
So he's not even good at playing the game he's playing to kill time.
That's how old the computers were when I was in school, that these guys also played Oregon Trail on the same computers.
Yeah.
The Apple IIes they bought in like 1981.
The green screenish type of, the green tint too, like the Game Boy screen, but on a computer.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
And then they reveal that the only other person who knows this is Palo Salazar, which then has the very Doc Hammer move of them saying, who's Palo Salazar? And then Dr. Girlfriend saying who the guy is. And she explains who it is. The monarch says, like, strong as a bull, or no one is as powerful. That is him quoting, and I had to look this one up too. That's him quoting the 1966 Hulk cartoon theme song.
Oh my God.
Which
I missed that completely.
No, I just, the way he put it, I'm like, all right, I just have to put this line in quotes in Google, and
it'll just finish it for you.
Yeah. Well, and definitely
some homework to do. Yeah.
The story of Paulo Salazar is kind of the Hulk thing of, like, he got hit by gamma rays and he became a monster. I mean, those 60s Marvel cartoons, if you think the Spider-Man ones are animated poorly, the one like that Hulk one, it's just copied Jack Kirby panels and then people talk over them. And Kirby got fucked on those, man.
They'll animate a mouth on there, right?
Sometimes. I also love that it's all posed as very sexy exposition between the two of them, which Monarch says is like out of the 1977 TV series Heart to Heart, which is about a pair of married crime-solving rich people. It's sounds like a crazy show.
I prefer Macmillan and Wife.
Yeah, I think it's another one me and you only know as a reference set on MST3K.
Things like Simon and Simon, all of these.
DJ and the Bear.
Blank and blank.
They're all from the same era, like you were saying. These are all 70s guys.
And I like how it's all posed out so sexy. And then as it ends, Monarch becomes a real person in that moment. It's all sexily posed out like they're in a movie. But then when it ends in them not having sex, Monarch's like, come on, I could just get a handy. Like, this is too exciting. This exposition was too horny for me.
It's interesting how much they have to set up Salazar too, because he's kind of the reason why things work out at the end. So there's actually a scene earlier too when JJ and Rusty were talking, and JJ's like, "Oh, you can't test on the floor. Like they be all sorts of mutations, like Paulo Salazar." So they kind of set this guy up over and over because it's like, yeah, we need to explain who this is, because this is the plot device almost that solves the issue.
They set him up to a degree, though. I will say, when he shows up later, I'm like, can't he talk? Shouldn't he be something more of a character?
They ran out of voices for Jackson, Jackson Public Dog Hammer to come up with.
They tried out a bunch, but they were all too similar to other voices. Like, I can only do 18 voices.
Then it cuts to Dr. Z's training video, which I do have a quick clip of that. So one thing they had to do was get rid of direct Johnny Quest references. The rules started being like, it's not Dr. Zinn anymore, and it's not Johnny Quest, it's Dr. Z and Action Johnny.
Because they think they're going to sell Johnny Quest again, right?
Sure, yeah.
But it's funny that, they changed the names, but they're still just straight up the same, like, models. Like, that's clearly Dr. Zinn, visually. Like, they didn't have to do that. I guess they're lucky they only had to change the names, really.
They think there's still meat on those gym mats.
Right. But there's lots to love about those old Johnny Quest, but nobody cares. Like, Venture Brothers is starting to be as old as Johnny Quest was in the 90s.
Oh, God.
But yeah, this feels like it could have been a whole its own episode. But I love the Blunderer sketch.
An army of uniformed henchmen is ready to obey your every order. What could possibly go wrong? Learn to recognize the telltale warning signs of a blunderer. This henchman looks all right, but look closer. His safety is still on. His tunic is untied, and his boot is untied. What's with all this blundering?
Hi, Dr. Z.
Well, if it isn't Mr. Blunder, understand me?
I tried my hardest.
And that's what a Mr. Blunder will say. But you must be firm with a blunderer. You have blundered for the last time.
It's all about how to execute blunderers.
I know. I love that it's like a 70s, internal video on what to do with a blunderer. But the lesson very quickly is, do you see how stupid he is? You have to execute him right there in front of everybody else. Like, that's what you have to do. And a great voice of Wyatt Cenac playing the goofiest of the sketch, like, well, I tried my hardest. Dr. Z is an underrated character. He appears sporadically throughout the first 5 seasons. And then season 6, he takes on a much bigger role, and he's really great.
It's been a while since I've watched the show, and I couldn't place him from the short.
Oh, okay. He appeared, I think his biggest role before this one, when Doc Venture is going to the group therapy with the other boy adventurers, they then go to his house that night and they eat with them.
Well, there's also the one with the buddy camp one where he shows up and menaces Johnny again.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Shows off for the kids. Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was a good one. Then what interrupts that is them bumping into the Staff of Ra prop from the Raiders of the Lost Ark, which, okay, I might sound like a hypocrite because if on Family Guy they did an extended riff of saying 3 lines from Raiders of the Lost Ark of like, they must take down one Haddam for the Hebrew God, they're digging in the wrong place. If they just said that, yes, I get it. It is just a lame reference to say a reference. But I say that this actually has deeper character meanings because it is kept at head level, the Staff of Ra, because St. Cloud is such a dilettante. He does a bad job of displaying the prop because it should be the correct size of the staff, but he builds it the wrong way in the way the Nazis build the staff the wrong way in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It's I haven't seen it in a few years, so I couldn't place it, but you're right.
But yeah, Pete says something about that. Where it's like, it's at head level, like just kind of like an offhand reference. Like, yeah, it's not supposed to be there.
Yeah. It at least goes to the fact that it's showing you that Billy is a better trivia dork than St. Cloud. So it's not just saying lines from Raiders of the Lost Ark. There's purpose to it.
But it's half that.
It is half that, yes. Yeah. I mean,
this movie wrote most of our dialogue for us. Let's put some of this in here.
You can hear Doc Hammer and Jackson Public smiling as they say, he's digging in the wrong place. Like, they're so happy.
I mean, that's them on screen, so yeah, you can.
Yes, yeah. But then St. Cloud reveals that he's there and he has a man-eating plant eat to the both of them. It then cuts to Dermot and Hank saying they've got everything ready. He makes a reference to Floridians with bath salts, which really puts this in 2012.
Oh, yeah. That was like, I mean, it was the biggest story of all time. Like, zombies are real kind of story.
Yeah. I miss the simpler times, man.
Go back to every podcast from that time period. Everyone's making bath salts jokes.
And also showing that Dermot has a future in police or soldier work with him knowing what police codes are. Like, that is what happens to the Dermots of the world. A lot of them become cops. And that's when 21 contacts Doc. He says he's having a push, which is just disgusting. Like, it truly is. And I like that you don't know who came up with which. It was 21 and Monarch. They know they came up with it together, but no one remembers who did what. That's when Doc realizes that, they did build it. And he doesn't give a shit about anybody else, even his kids who are in danger during this. And that's when 21 just tells him, like, don't take this the wrong way. But working for you and the Monarch, kind of the same thing.
It's true.
Yeah, they're making that very explicit, like what you're talking about earlier. It's very explicit, like, yeah, you're just a Monarch, but slightly different occupation.
Is that when like Doc is hooking up his like roofie supply to the air conditioning?
It's as he's building it. Yeah. That's also when Hatred lets 21 know that Dean is in danger too, and they got to clean out the place. Then it cuts back to Billy, and he's got a challenge. And when the show got officially canceled, this was a line I was seeing quoted more on Twitter than I thought anywhere else.
Just 100 pennies. Eat them, and the plasma engine is yours.
I'm not gonna eat pennies. Billy, eat the pennies. It's just pennies, so you poop pennies. Big deal.
All right, I'll sweeten the pot.
What, a helper model?
It's the real helper, thank you. I recently purchased him from Dr. Venture.
I sold helper too? That is just cold.
Eat the pennies, and he's yours as well.
Just eat the pennies.
Eat the pennies, quiz boy.
Eat the pennies.
I won't eat pennies.
Listen to your sidekick and eat the pennies.
I am not a psychic. Billy, eat the damn pennies already.
Eat the pennies.
No, I'm not gonna eat the pennies. Listen, let's do this old school.
Go on.
Trivia. One question. Winner takes all.
You get helper, the floating platform, and I get...
Name it.
I want your albino. I'm collecting them now.
Fine, take the albino.
What? No!
Wait, you gotta trust me here. I can keep trivia circles around him. I'm the quiz boy.
And then we'll do this properly. Step into the octagon, quiz boy. It took me years and a small fortune to reassemble, but it's worth every delicious penny.
That eat the pennies thing back and forth. I just like, eat the pennies, eat the pennies.
I like how he's this like criminal mastermind, but his revenge is so petty. Just like, eat this jar of pennies.
It's just like in a coffee can too. It's not even presented in an interesting way. I especially love Pete's like, so you'll poop pennies. Big deal. And also the reference to a Mego doll. Those guys, the Venture Brothers guys, love Mego dolls. Like, I would have told them to not make your first toys Mego dolls because younger people don't give a crap about Mego dolls. But they did it. They went through with their vision. And of course, I've learned recently that quote unquote albino, that is not a term that people with albinism prefer. And so I try to not use that term from now on.
Yeah, it's just it's being used crassly because it's like I've got an albino, like not even a person.
Yeah. No, yeah, that he's collecting them now, and that he has an Asian person with albinism. Oh, I also he says Voodoo Island, and that I had to look this one up. Fortunately, Voodoo Island's just on YouTube. He does say the correct year for Voodoo. He says the wrong year for Voodoo Island, but Adam West does appear in it, uncredited. It's one of Adam West. It is apparently his first film appearance. Adam West is it's like how Clint Eastwood appears in Return of the Creature, I believe. Isn't that the one?
Oh, yes.
The sequel to the Creature from the Black Lagoon.
He's like a doctor in that movie or something, really briefly.
Again, MST3K, only reason I know that.
Same here.
I wish they'd done Voodoo Island on it. I bet they get some good stuff out of it. That's a Boris Karloff film. Honestly, probably too good for them to get a Boris Karloff film.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And yes, we go back to the Quiz Boy set from The Invisible Hand of Fate. They rebuilt it. But then first we go back to Dean at the Eden. Dean makes it clear. He just says, you turn the Eden into an Ewok village, which is exactly what they draw it to look like.
Yeah. I mean, there's even the Yub Nub song later.
I love that Yub Nub song. I love it. Though what Dean doesn't realize is if he's going to become the leader of the Ewok village, that means he's C-3PO. That's the role he has to take on, and that makes him more of a dork. But yes, they challenge each other to what they call on the commentary Boy Scout games, basically.
Yeah.
Old school Boy Scout games, which is why they're all called Indian something, because that's what they would have called it in the 70s.
It was really a different era, and it was happening in the 80s too, because I lived through some of this, where it's anything exotic or dangerous, be that's the Indian blank. So the Indian rope burn, which I think they call something different here. What's the Indian?
Man, I didn't get that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I was only privy to the Indian rope burn. But then they have the Indian feast and Indian leg wrestling or whatever.
Yes,
yeah.
I've heard of that. I've done the cracker whistling challenge. Couldn't pull that one off in my youth, but despite having a brother, we never did the Indian leg wrestling thing. We never did the battle of the leg and who can turn over the other.
Oh, they called it, is what I remember calling it as a kid, Indian sunburn specifically.
Indian sunburn, okay.
Yeah, that's what I had heard as a kid, yeah.
For me, it was rope burn, but different tribes, I guess, nearby in Ohio.
I also like Hatred is kind of just doing a Karate Kid reference, I think, of him saying, snap the leg.
Oh, yeah.
It's references.
I think also Dean's super good at this because this is the sort of dumb crap him and Hank had done for years,
Hank has trained him well for this type of thing.
So Dean absolutely destroys Martin at these dumb games.
And he becomes the Lee Hun-Tuk. He wins.
It's the dawn of the second age, y'all.
And then it cuts back to Pete. Pete is back in his old game show host mode as we saw in The Invisible Hand of Fate. Again, this is when St. Cloud is revealed to be the heir of the plastics company, which also reminds me of how in the Nixium cult that it's run, the person giving them all the money were the heirs to the Seagram's fortune.
God. I assume by the time this episode launches, there'll be 300 episodes of that Vow show, right?
Vow show. I'm sorry I said...
I never started watching it. Don't apologize.
No, I mean to the listeners, too. If I told you to watch The Vow, I was wrong. It turns into a reality show after 3 episodes.
And it just got renewed for the next decade.
How do you renew a God, terrible.
I'd watch more Tiger King. Let's follow that guy through jail.
Yeah. See, that's a problem. He's too in jail, and unless now Carol Baskin she's moved beyond Tiger King. She can get her own show now. She's past that brand.
I want her to murder a different husband every season.
Wow, it sounds like I'm really glad I missed all of this because I barely even know what happens in any of that crap.
Oh man, I was just telling my dad today to watch Tiger King.
Tiger King was the start, literally the start of quarantine. He's you know what? This ain't so bad. Got a new documentary to watch. Gonna catch up on my reading.
Yeah, and once all Tiger King's done, then the quarantine's over too.
Yeah, we were such innocent souls at that time.
And surely I'll play Animal Crossing every day.
Yep.
I won't get tired of it by June.
But then Billy reveals that he had created a double bluff trick question that is made perfectly to trick St. Cloud.
The question is, how many robots are in this cabinet? The answer is 5.
Wrong! There's 4, St. Cloud.
Nomad 1. Helper 2, the walking eye that is part of Helper 3, Tweaky 4, and around his neck is Dr. Theopolis 5. Oh, did you miss that? I'm so sorry.
Not so fast, St. Cloud. Nomad isn't a robot. It's a deep space probe. Nomad, a probe, merged with Tonru, an alien probe. 2 probes don't make a robot.
They call him a robot.
Star Trek TOS Episode 3, Season 2, The Changeling. Nomad is referred to as a sinking machine, vessel, device, mechanism, and probe. You're flawed, St. Cloud. You must sterilize. Sterilize!
You win this time. But mark my words and mark them well. I will get you, quiz boy.
You know, I was only familiar with Nomad because of the MST3K parody, Monad.
Good old
and
Monad.
It was on Laser Blast, an episode I've seen a lot.
I love that Monad one because he points out the problem with Nomad of just like, wait, you didn't trick me. You were telling a fib. That is not the same. I had not seen that Nomad episode in forever, and it is so ridiculous that like basically a broom is covered in metal and they just kind of cart it around and they're like, please, Nomad, give us time. They're just talking to this very silly thing. But yeah, it's I checked the Alpha Memory wiki for Star Trek, and those folks don't mess around. They are clear that it is a probe as well, that the Nomad is a probe.
Yeah, and the lines that Billy shouts are, I think, word for word what Kirk says to
sterilize. Sterilize. Also, here's why it is a great construction of a trick question by Billy, because St. Cloud thinks it's a trick question because lower level geeks who know Buck Rogers, which again, this is all me from Googling. I don't know Buck Rogers. Dr. Theopolis is the thing carried around by Tweaky. But some people would think of Tweaky and Dr. Theopolis as a single entity. They would not count them as 2 separate robots, even though they are. And so that is the trick question that St. Cloud thinks it is. So just to fully explain it, Buck Rogers has not mattered in a very long time. But,
well, there's also some debate as to whether Dr. Theopolis is actually properly a robot.
Oh,
so,
wow.
maybe Billy cheated a little bit. No, I have no idea.
But yeah, it's this is the most triumphant Billy has ever been on the show, which I love that. And St. Cloud does deliver on this warning to Billy in season 6. He does make him pay. And so yeah, then comes back to Doc. Oh yeah, this is when he finds out that the kids are in danger and doesn't give a shit. And that's when he's told that he's exactly like the Monarch. I did that one a little early, yeah. And then heads back into the cocoon. The Monarch's like, so is our plan going well? And she just lies and goes, oh, it's under control. Yeah, which she means her plan, not his. And that's when he brings up the term push, and he doesn't know where it came from either.
Sweetie, it's under control. And I've already sent in an advance team to secure the hatch.
Excellent! And we drop in our mutant henchmen as if taking an evil, mighty push!
That is so foul. Can you say movement instead of push?
Okay, movement! I don't even know why I say push. Really gross when you think about it. Push.
Push.
It feels like one of those like euphemisms that ends up being grosser than what it's trying to cover up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just when you say push, you think of the exertion one makes in that moment, and it does feel grosser than if you just say, when you say movement, that is far less gross than a push. I think too, it's the popping of the P on the push.
A mighty evil push is
Oh yeah, mighty evil. Then it cuts back to Billy and Pete triumphantly flying home in their hover car. I like that Pete wants to keep it, and then we get another callback to Robobo, the robot dog that Pete loved in the previous seasons, and now he's still like, get a cat or something. Forget it. Then everything starts going wrong at once for 21. Like he finds out that they've got no time to decontaminate, that the boys are all in danger, the Doc doesn't care, and then he sees the Monarch is coming, and he's just like, God, everything's going wrong here. Then it cuts back to the Ewok village. Kevin and Tim Tom are revealed to have been undercover there the entire time. And that's where we get the Palamon celebration set to a knockoff of Yub Nub.
It's over? I'm king now, and I can let everyone out of the dome in my backyard and get them help?
Dean, you're the Lehan Tuck now, and you're gonna usher in the second age. I'll be your queen. We'll rule the world in peaceful, sustainable harmony. We'll, make out and stuff.
I am Dean, the Leon Took. I am king of the world.
And people now are more aware of Yub Nub than ever, right?
Yes,
Because if Disneyland were to open, you can buy an $80 cocktail.
And I did. Hey, no, it's only $60. Let's not be crazy.
Well, I mean, when it opens up again, who knows how much it'll
That's
cost?
true. I really love that tiki drink, the Yub Nub. So I've said it before on a podcast, but I'll repeat it real quick. That I love the song Yub Nub because it was the song I heard as a child at the end of Return of the Jedi, and the fact that George Lucas took it away and removed and replaced it in the special editions and it still isn't in there, knowing that George Lucas, Dad, doesn't want me to have Yub Nub, it makes me like Yub Nub all the more. Even though it is a stupid teddy bear picnic song at the end of your big serious Star Wars movie, I just love Yub Nub, Echok, Yub Nub. So great. Ah, God. And the tiki glass, I don't want to drink out of it because I'm worried I'll break it someday because it's, it's hefty, but it feels like it could break with one drop. But it looks like it's carved by the Ewoks. It's beautiful.
By children in teddy bear costumes.
They are going so hardcore. In Children Overseas, they make them dress as Ewoks. But yeah, they're going so hard on the Star Wars stuff. They even have not only the Ewok celebration, but when Hatred hugs Tommy, it's exactly like when Han hugs Lando. And an Ewok cartwheels in that sequence, just like the Palamon cartwheels do.
That's the one that really sticks out to me. Was the little cartwheel thing he did. I was like, that's 100% Ewok right there.
I love it. And I also love that Dean gets one kiss and he's like, yeah, I'll overthrow all society. Forget it. That matters that much to a young boy.
I think did we get to the part where 21 has like decoded the theses and it's all about turning the world into mutants?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that he spent the whole time, he actually was reading it in Sindarin, Quenya, not Sindarin. Yeah, that's when he figures out that it's to conquer the world by reversing the ray shield on everyone else, which that's a classic comic book scheme. And I love, it's actually like a good action sequence of Billy and Pete flying in, 21 jumping on it, and then riding to the top. But I also love that every now and then, even though 21 is this cool action guy, and in his heart, he's still a dweeb. So sometimes he'll like trip and fall, and he'll just talk like a dweeb still does. Like, this sucks.
You'll see his embarrassing tattoo.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I like that they show his tattoo there. I think there's a bit of poignancy to that in the sense that he's trying to move his identity upward, right, to being like his own Sphinx commander. And he's not doing a good job of it because he's a henchman. He's a henchman for life. So even now he's working for Dr. Venture, basically.
You're right.
Which is almost a step down, really, from working for the Monarch.
Yeah, You're right. In this moment where he's being forced to be a henchman again and he's trying to deny it, his true self comes through by showing the tattoo on his stomach. Yeah, there's a lot of weight to that scene. I also like that when he stops Kevin and Tim Tom, Monarch still doesn't think he's trying to stop him. He's like, great, he's here for the final part of the job.
He goes, Dean and Hatred are still inside. He's like, great, thanks for telling me. Release the gas.
And they release all the butterflies. Turns out that they were just curing everybody and administering a cure as created by Pelo Salazar. He's this poor old man shaking, which then actually made me feel even worse because when they are forced to retreat and everybody gets knocked out, I'm like, well, that man died then. If you can't drug and knock out a 98-year-old man.
He did not get high, his heart stopped.
Yeah. But I love too that when you see that like Dr. Girlfriend is the only one who saved the day, Doc's thing saves him by giving everyone basically a super roofie that then removes their memory of the last 3 months. But Doc didn't save anyone.
I think his brilliant idea was just roofies and antibiotics and just pumps in there and hope something works out all right for him. Like,
yeah.
That's wow.
Many of these people are dead.
Yes, yeah. It's when they treat it like, oh, everybody's cured. It's like, well, not everyone but one green class was eaten. So no, everyone else dead. But yeah, I also like the way he puts it like, well, it'll do something. But yes, after everyone's knocked out and everyone is cured, it's a happy ending. As usual, Rusty gets a series of helpful coincidences that make him think he's a great genius. A happy ending, basically, as long as you don't think of all of the dead people. A happy ending in this final clip.
Be careful, that's a fragile piece of venture ingenuity you're loading. tell me you decontaminated that thing.
Ah, yeah, it's fine. You know what I can't believe is that your antidote actually worked.
Right? It was basically antibiotics and roofies. I guess even my wild guesses are flawless.
Martin, I feel that something untoward has happened. What was it?
Yeah, we just kind of hid in the house. We totally did not want to get our faces eaten. What happened in there?
I don't really remember. I think I fought a guy to be the leader of the world. And, like, the hottest chick there was my queen.
Yeah, that happened. Dude, you are so baked.
I know that girl. I feel like we made out or something.
Ooh, check your watch. It works for me sometimes. Why are you here?
Hey, why do you still have tits?
Every time that end credits thing
Smashes
comes in,
you.
so good. Bah, 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 so funny.
Yeah, it's a consistent theme on the show that the real heroism is done by either like the older generation or it's already done in the past, basically, and people just kind
Yeah.
of stumbling into not screwing up the world now. So like I think that's why they introduced Salazar, is mostly to show like, yeah, someone already came along and did this for you, you know.
Yeah, you're right. It is another old man from basically the greatest generation. He already did it, and we're just standing on his shoulder.
It's also to sell this very easy solution. Well, like, this is the smartest man on the planet who we have
Yes.
access to. So
Yeah.
this solution, he'll just do it for us.
And also, I like that they call back to Hank erasing his memory and getting a Total Recall style video that told him he got laid, because this is a similar thing where they want to reset Dean. They're like, well, Dean's first kiss, he can't remember this. We don't want this to be Dean's first kiss as he recalls it. So they have to erase his memory as well. But I think that too is though what happens when you write a script backwards, because they're like, wait, a Dean who's had his first kiss can't be the Dean in future episodes. So we got to take that away at the end of this episode.
Yeah, they mentioned explicitly that on the commentary. I mean, I guess we touched on this already, but yeah, this episode was written last.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, so it's
They got to
And,
work backwards.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's what you mentioned that already. But yeah, they wrote this last, and they didn't really have a slot for a proper ending exactly, or at least not like a real ending that they might have done if they did have another slot.
But I do like that Dermot and Hank just admit, like, no, we weren't going to come out and help. We'd be murdered. We just stayed inside the house.
Surprisingly reasonable from Hank, because Hank usually all about adventure and stuff. And even within the season, he's all about crazy adventure. But this episode is like, no, screw it. I don't want to get my face eaten.
I think that shows you Dermot talked him out of it, I think. And the last thing they need to explain in this episode is that Hatred's boobs were not caused by the radiation and will continue throughout the rest of the season. I think that's too why they wanted an episode that covered multiple months in this period of time, so you could see Hatred's breasts growing, so it's not just an overnight thing of him having large breasts. And then we get the credits theme. Love the credits theme. Then we get Venture Brothers. They've been doing it way before Marvel Cinematic Universe of a post-credit scene, which always has a funny little bit. This one here gets a yikes from me with Monarch saying the R word.
Oh, yeah, that's where it pops
Yeah.
up. Well, he is high, right?
He is, he's high.
He's very high.
And I do love that his reaction to being high, though, too, is saying to his wife, like, you are so awesome. You're like my best friend. Like, that's so sweet. But that's
Well, she spent the whole time making jokes about like antidote, butter, anti-fly, no butter dotes.
Yeah, which again
Like-
it's the writers pitching jokes to themselves.
Ooh, were
in
they
character.
smelling the wacky tobacco
I wonder.
at
yeah.
Astro Base?
Another thing I like on the commentaries is when you can hear them light up cigarettes. You're just and they kind of talk like they're like, oh yeah, this is what we did here. When you can tell they have a cigarette in between their lips as they're still talking.
Please start vaping.
You gotta
We
hope
need
that-
you for the future.
That was in 2012. You got to think they've moved on to vaping by now.
I don't know, these Gen Xers.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. As they're reaching their 50s, especially, I know Public is married now. I would hope his wife is at least gone like, you're 49. You can't smoke cigarettes anymore, buddy. But yeah, man, that was a mega-sized episode of Venture Brothers, but a great season opener. And it's basically was a perfect like reset up for the series. And I can see how everything going to the last episode that is aired spins out from this episode. Like it sets up when you go back and re-binge the whole series, you can see the amount of planning Public and Hammer put into this show. Like they did a whole lot of work that is hard to appreciate when you're watching 8 episodes every 3 years. But when you see them normally or just in a huge batch of them, you're like, wow, they really planned all this out. How you like that?
I just think it's kind of funny because usually they kind of joke around like, oh yeah, we just make jokes and pretend it was continuity later. So they usually play off like this idea that they're planning stuff. But yeah, like you were saying, when you watch it all in a row, like there's very clearly a plan that they had in mind for even seasons down the road.
And you don't need to go this far into the series to see how much that they built, but it's interesting to watch this and compared to the first season, which was very good, but also just the sort of almost one-note premise. But they were clearly even building back then.
Yeah, and I mean, when he made his original pitch to Adult Swim, it was like, well, that's what Adult Swim wanted, was a one-note premise. Like C-Lab was that, Harvey Birdman was that, so they're like, oh, it's, adult Johnny Quest. Like, that's what this is. They only eventually they figure out what they could make more with it. Like again, in the book, they make a point of how, like, by the time they wrote the season 4 finale, they said, we could do something emotional and actually tell a story with characters instead of keeping everything at a parodic distance. And I think definitely have that figured out by this point. Any final thoughts, Dave?
I mean, about the episode or about Venture Brothers in general?
Sure.
Yeah, so again, like with each season, they really did up their game with storytelling. Again, the big jump is usually noted between 1 and 2. Like that's when they actually start introducing continuity, really, is season 2. But with each season, they really just start building what came before, like Bob was saying. And yeah, like I said at the top of the episode, it's only when I really marathoned it that I really started to appreciate, like, wow, it really sucks that this got canceled. Like, there was definitely room for more. As someone who watches like anime and reads manga, I started to appreciate something actually ending. Like, I think ending is good for a lot of these things. But it is pretty clear that this could use at least one more season. I don't know if they're going to get it. It kind of sounds like maybe.
And it seems like Hammer and Public, they're not going to make a new show. This feels like their last shows, So let them finish the show they've been making.
Well, hopefully time will make fools of us all when you're listening to this in February, right?
Yes.
It's early November.
I would be more than happy to be made a fool of if it meant they actually got a season or something.
But Dave, thank you so much for being on the show and being one of our top tier patrons. You usually plug other things when you're on our show. Do you have anything you want to plug in the plug section here?
Yeah, so I'll throw a plug for Accident Cinema. It's a channel that focuses on foreign cinema. And I just think he does a really good job. He had a really good one on Mulan not too long ago. The Disney reboot Mulan that rightfully a lot of people don't like, but he had a really good explanation about like what really doesn't work about it. So yeah, that's just a channel I just discovered recently that I thought was really good.
Oh, cool. I'll check that out. You've turned me on to some good channels before, so I'm going to check that one out. And thank you as always, Dave. Your support helps us do this. So thank you so much.
Actually, real quick, thanks for indulging me because this was a very long episode, not just the podcast, but also the episode itself. So appreciate you guys letting me have my fun with Venture Brothers.
Well, we need to celebrate the series now more than ever.
For sure, yeah. And we can't give it short shrift. If they're going to go to the trouble of rewatching that Adam West movie from '57 about a man-eating plant, then we have to do the same in our talking about it.
So thanks again to Dave for being one of our top tier patrons. If you want to be cool like Dave and support the show and get some cool stuff on top of that, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up there for $5 a month and you'll get everything behind the $5 paywall along with all of these podcasts 1 week ahead of time and ad-free. The podcasts behind the paywall include all of our limited miniseries. The most recent one that we did was Talking Futurama Season 2 Part 2. 9 new episodes of Talking Futurama to go along with the previous episodes we've done in the past. And there is so much more behind that paywall. Too much to list here, but there's over like 100 bonus podcasts at this point and more to come because the spring of 2021 miniseries is just around the corner and that is for patrons only as well. But if you sign up at the $10 level at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, you get all the $5 stuff, of course, but also access to one mega long podcast once a month. Only for patrons of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Bob is referring to the What a Cartoon Movie podcast. At the $10 level, you get all of that $5 stuff Bob just mentioned, and then you get a monthly What a Cartoon Movie podcast. It's like this podcast, but even longer, about an animated feature film once a month. We have over 2 years of them. I think over 120 hours of podcasts at this point, just of us talking about animated feature films as varied as The End of Evangelion, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, and Wallace and Gromit Curse of the Were-Rabbit, just to name a few. You'll get to hear each month as they go live if you are a $10 and up subscriber, plus all the other stuff at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
So as for me, I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo, and my other podcast is Retronauts, a classic video game podcast about old video games. Find that wherever you find podcasts or go to patreon.com/Retronauts for 2 bonus episodes every month. Henry, what about you?
Follow Henry Gilbert on Twitter at HENEREYG. That's where you'll get all the updates on my life. And if you want to stay up to date with this podcast and its sister podcast, Talking Simpsons, you got to follow on Twitter at Talk Simpsons Pod, at Talk Simpsons Pod. That has all the updates when shows go live on the free feed or on the Patreon, or we're doing cool polls about upcoming things, or when we have news for you. You will stay up to date if you follow at Talk Simpsons Pod on Twitter.
Thank you so much for joining us, folks. We'll see you next time for the Tailspin episode, Vowel Play, and we'll see you then.
No, this is not the first time or the last time we shall meet. It's hard to understand the circumstances, and so easy to be indiscreet. Of all the chances we are given, which one can we take? And after all the indecision, do we have a choice to make? I've seen it all before, chaos and alone. All we need is someone to even up the score. Take away the day and take away the night. I'll show you a man who's looking for a fight. Ever wonder why so many break the rules? Ever had to try to understand the fool? In pursuit of pleasure, there's many a decoy, and oh, how we treasure the things we can enjoy. No, this is not the first time or the last time we shall meet. It's hard to understand the circumstances, and so easy to be indiscreet. Of all the chances we are given, which one can we take? And after all the indecision, do we have a choice to make? Do we have a choice to make?
I'll release it at 4:30 a.m., right?
No, slight problem. Hatred and Dean are in there. And I deciphered the 94 Theses. It's kind of a Bible, complete with a nutty apocalypse called the Second Age. And that's basically using your ray shield to turn the whole world into mutants.
So you're saying...
Exactly! Dean and Hatred and the whole world are in danger!
What? No, you're saying they finished my ray shield. Best news I've heard all day.
Don't take this as an insult. But working for you and the Monarch, it's like the same thing.